and James, Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
And away we go on a Monday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us. Will Cotterly sitting in with me today. James and Taman are out. I'm back from my week-long trip in Colorado. Apparently, you've been here this whole time. What's up, Will? How are you?
Apparently, I have. I've been doing well. How was your trip?
It was great, man. It was a lot of fun. I got out to Colorado. My family drove out to Pagosa Springs, Colorado, which is it's about a 12-hour drive from Dallas, and it's right at the border of New Mexico and Colorado. And, you know, before I moved to Texas, I didn't really know what bordered Texas. So come to find out, New Mexico is one of those states. And yeah.
From our angle.
Yeah. So drove up there, had a great week. Pagosa is a really interesting town because it's very underdeveloped relative to like an Aspen or a Vail. And it's a lot quieter. It's a lot better, in my opinion, because it's underdeveloped that way. It's I think I heard of it as referred to like the hillbilly Aspen. So it was perfect. I mean, it's great sights. I mean, I grew up in Chicago. I went to Kansas. I live in Texas. I never really lived close to the mountains or close to an ocean before. So, like, of those two things, I really enjoy mountains. And just being in the mountains, even though it was unseasonably hot in Colorado while we were up there last week, it was still considerably cooler than it was here in Dallas and Texas. So that was nice. And then even got a chance, my buddy and I took our oldest kids to Mesa Verde National Park. Which is about 90 miles from Pagosa Springs, so about 2.5 hours driving the mountain way. And you drive west. And, I mean, this is like the heart of new Big 12 country, I realized as I was driving through. Because Mesa Verde National Park, for those uninitiated, is very close to the Four Corners, which is, I mean, it is like 40 miles from Four Corners, which is the border of Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. The heart of Big 12 country.
It is.
And so at Mesa Verde National Park, I mean, you are looking at mountain ranges all around you that are in 4 different states. And it's really cool, too, because you go from Pagosa. Pagosa's west of Dallas. You know, it's western Colorado, if you will, but southwestern Colorado. And so it's right at the border of New Mexico again. And it's very green. It's very lush. A lot of pine trees, junipers, firs, if you will. You drive west, though, and you're starting to get into the gateway of the real old Southwest, the desert, you know, more of the red rock, less of the green. So it was kind of cool to sort of see the evolution of that nature as you drive through west from Pagosa out to Mesa Verde National Park. So that was cool. And look, I mean, I now had the opportunity this summer to do 2 different national parks. One, Acadia National Park in Bar Harbor, Maine, and then Mesa Verde National Park in Colorado. So really, really cool summer for me to get the opportunity to go out to those national parks and, you know, and take them in, because I love to be sort of alone in nature without sounds and city noise, and it's just a great change of pace for me.
Had you been before to Colorado?
Yes, but only to ski in the winter. I've never really been there for the summertime.
The mountain time. So you're a Midwestern, Central Time Zone guy basically your whole life. Chicago,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Kansas, Texas. Now you go to the Mountain Time Zone. It is interesting how the center of the conference geographically, I mean, all 4 time zones, but you really get that with the Mountain Time Zone now.
Yeah, and it was just, again, kind of cool to, like, not really realize until I got there. Like, yeah, this is like the heart of Big 12 country here. I mean, it's 3 of the 4 states, the only one being New Mexico that doesn't have a Big 12 school, but all of the, you know, important state universities, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, of course Arizona State as well, a very important state university in the state of Utah and Arizona, BYU, all part of the Big 12 now.
The new Big 12. It's funny, we were talking about that last week, about conference realignment, which has been an overwhelming story forever. And I posed the question about, has the realignment in this Big 12 made things more fun? And we were asking about the travel, right? Going from Orlando all the way out to Arizona for a game. But the other guys were saying, man, that's a non-starter. Everyone has to travel now. But it is interesting where you see you can explore this whole country and you get to see Big 12 wherever you go, and that's the cool part about it.
And look, maybe there are some, outlying members of the Big 12, but I would say like this gave me a new appreciation for the connective tissue of Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. It's not as far away as I think people would want you to believe, and certainly not as disparate, if you will, with Cal being in the ACC or UCLA being in the Big Ten.
Right, and you really got to appreciate it driving.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You weren't on the charter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No.
It's a fun drive, too. As soon as you get out of Texas, now Texas takes a bit because when you drive up to New Mexico and Colorado from Texas, you're going through Amarillo, which not quite through Lubbock because you're going diagonally from Dallas, so you don't pass through Lubbock. But it's a hike just to get out of Texas. But then it's like you turn left and you're in New Mexico, and it suddenly is gorgeous as soon as you drop into New Mexico.
The gorgeous stops. You're saying once you leave Texas, it's not gorgeous, but then as soon as you cross the border, it's gorgeous, is what you're saying?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. You
That's
go from
great.
flatlands, the plains, to the mountains.
Long road trip, though. No jet lag for you? You're ready to go.
Ready to go. Got back Friday. It's actually not a bad drive, to be honest.
And all in one, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I remember I used to drive from Lawrence back home to Chicago. That's an 8-hour drive. You're driving clear straight across the state of Iowa, right across I-80.
Cornfields.
Cornfields as far as the eye can see. Basically a green screen behind you, with the similar backdrop throughout. And I'm thinking like 8 hours, man, that's about as much as I could possibly do in the car at one point. So it was good to go there and back. I was actually initially on the way there supposed to stop in Amarillo and take in the Big Tex. You ever been out there, the Big Tex?
I haven't, no.
They've got billboards on your way to Amarillo. It says, free 72-ounce steak. Great billboard.
Did you get it?
Well, it's a free 72-ounce steak if you eat the whole thing.
Oh, there's a caveat.
Now, it's not even, quite frankly, I think it's like if you don't finish it, it's only like $60. So when you think about a 72-ounce steak being $60, that's actually an amazing deal.
Yeah, price per ounce.
But we didn't end up stopping in Amarillo. We were like, let's just clear cut, drive straight through, and ended up in Colorado, and we did. It's like, I think it's 6.5 from there.
Good company in a car can make the time go by. Pretty
Sure, yeah. That or, your kids get iPads, devices, and it's like, see ya, bye.
Are we there yet?
Yeah, and you still get that. It's like, bro, you've got video games. You've got, like, everything I could have ever wanted on a road trip as a kid. You've got all these movies and video games and anything at your disposal. You're like, yeah, are we there? Oh, I'm tired of being in the car. Bro, I'm driving.
Right.
What are you talking about? You're tired. You haven't done anything. You're just sitting there.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Got the cruise control on.
That's right. You got to do. I'll tell you, my people who listen to the show or have listened to me for quite some time may know that I have a pet peeve of people who drive in the left lane, hold up traffic. I'll tell you, the worst part, though, about driving long drives is the people you're around driving that don't use cruise control on a highway long stretches. So, like, you've got the guy that's like, you get around because he's going too slow in the left lane. You get around him, you go ahead. And you're like, all right, cruise control back on. I'm at like 70, let's just call it 80 and a 75, okay? 5 over, right? Anywhere between 5 and 6 over.
5, 6,
Yeah.
7 maybe.
But then the guy speeds up. And then you get over and he goes ahead. And then, so it's like, all right, cool. Like, the pace has changed. Good job. Like, way to go. And then, but I haven't changed my speed at all. I keep catching up and then falling behind this guy, and it's like, dude, you're annoying me now because you don't have a consistent rate of speed. I do. So if you drive at a consistent rate of speed, which is faster than me, then we're not going to catch up to each other. It's a huge pet peeve of mine. The other one is I did get a ticket. I did get a speeding ticket.
On the way there or home?
On the way back
You're
in New
rushing?
Mexico. Very nice, younger state trooper in New Mexico. But when you're driving through, like, the speed limit can change pretty dramatically pretty quickly. And, of course, they're looking for you when that happens. And so when it goes from, like, 75 down to 60, down to 50, down to 40, and suddenly you're like, I was going 60 to 40?
That's tough.
Whoops.
Nice,
So, yeah.
though. I'm glad you brought back a ticket story for us.
Thank
can
you.
tell it
Yeah.
But
No,
I'm
it's-
sorry you got one. That's always tough.
Yeah, it is.
But it was a good interaction, at least, and a nice teaching moment, maybe.
Teachable moment. Yeah,
That's good.
yeah. I guess don't speed. Teachable moment for my kids who'd never been in a car with somebody getting pulled over before. Like, are you about to get arrested? I was like, no, I don't think so.
That's funny.
I don't think I was going fast enough. Are you about to get arrested? No, I don't think so. All right, Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio. Great to be back. We've got a loaded show today and a lot to get to as we are now under 20, Will. Mm-hmm. We are 19 days away from Dublin, from TCU, North Carolina, kicking the season off. Can you believe that? What is that? That puts us at the 29th of August?
Yes, I can believe it.
19 days away.
Because of the coach speak. I think what really got me excited for
You can believe it. I love that.
season,
I can believe it. It's been long enough.
Come on.
It's been long enough. We're ready for football back.
Big 12 football media days, I think really, and I'm sure for you, interviewing all those coaches, I feel like that is what initially got the juices flowing.
It
Hearing
does.
all the football coach speak, and our culture's phenomenal, and we're going to fly around to the football and have a lot of energy. All that stuff, all those quotes, those are the things that really get you going.
Yeah, no question about it. But I would say this in terms of like media days in general. It's fun and it does get the juices flowing, but then it's like very much like a hurry up and wait situation. Because then you get done with media days and it's still like, yeah, there's still like nearly 2 months before football starts.
Right.
Because it's like early July and we're talking about end of August. So there is like very much we're close but not quite close sort of dynamic with it. But look, we're now entering a very close period of time. You know, we're basically now a month removed from media days, a month out from football season. We've got camp hyper reality, some interesting storylines already starting to percolate from camps as those are underway across the country. Plus, Will, you put together the Big 12's non-conference report card, so we'll go through all the non-conference games and best possible win, most important win, most fun, guaranteed win, which loss would hurt the most. We'll get into all of those on the show today. Plus, our countdown to kickoff continues as we're counting you down to kickoff, talking Baylor football. That's all on today's show. But this is a Modelo Monday. Great to be with you, Will. Will Connerly, Ari Temkin with you for the next 3 hours here on Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio on a Modelo Monday. So we talk about being a full-time fan because that's Modelo. Modelo fans are full-time fans, as are the listeners and people who watch the show each and every weekday, especially during the off season. So which Big 12 program are you willing to become a full-time fan of right now?
I'm a full-time fan of two programs. All the programs, come on. But if I got to pick one.
I mean, come on, Will.
Come on.
So, full transparency, Will, you played baseball in college.
I did.
At?
Quincy University. Small Division II school.
Quincy, Illinois.
That's right.
Quincy Hannibal, the home of?
Mark Twain.
The great Mark Twain.
Greatness right there.
It's what it's known for, Hannibal, Quincy, Illinois.
Yes.
You're from the area as well?
From a little south of there, St. Louis.
That's right.
Right.
Heard of it. It's like a small town in Missouri, right?
Yep, small town.
It's a little podunk town called St. Louis.
Yes. But full-time fan.
So you're not totally affiliated with the Big 12 from a standpoint of you didn't go to a Big 12 school.
Correct.
You grew up in Big 12 country.
Right. Like your answer is going to be obvious, right? You're going to be a full-time fan of Rock Chalk.
Yeah.
Which I think that this is a song for another time.
No, but there could be like beyond that one, somebody that I'm a full-time fan of for this season in terms of like I'm excited to see what they look like.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know it's an easy cop-out answer. We're on Big 12 today. Big 12 Radio, and you're going to be talking about all these programs, but there are a lot of teams I am really intrigued to see. I would say Arizona is one that really jumps out at me. I just think they've got a lot of things where you can be a fan of this team. James and Taman were trying to convince me about K-State. I think they have an easy schedule, so it will be fun to see them. But Oklahoma State is one that I'm going to be a fan of just because.
All right, so Arizona or Oklahoma State?
Oklahoma State. I'll be a full-time.
Okay, because you mentioned Arizona there, then tried to bring up Kansas State because Taman and James were talking.
Right, no, I was doing that cop-out where you bring up multiple teams to not make fan bases
Okay, just want to make sure I was following you correctly.
Yeah,
Got it.
Following? Right there.
Perfect. So you were fence riding until you jumped off the fence and said Oklahoma State.
Correct, right. I was basically not having a good take and just kind of meandering around and saying, I'll be a full-time fan of everybody. I have two full-time jobs.
All right, so Oklahoma State, give us the rationale, the reasoning here.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that they won the transfer portal in a big way. I mean, a lot of teams went hard in the transfer portal, but I think the excitement at the quarterback position with Mestamaker, I mean, that's been a storyline all throughout the offseason. And I think for me, it's intrigue, right? When you're a fan of a team, you are going to ride or die with them. And so it's obviously disingenuous of me to say I'm ride or die Oklahoma State. But after the years that they've had, the really tough years that they've had, there's juice now, I think, in Stillwater. They're receiving votes in a coaches poll coming into this year after some really dark times that they had. And when you bring in a new coach, when you bring in a new quarterback that obviously have a connection from North Texas, that is something that makes me excited to see what they can do. And we'll get to this later, but they have some opportunity in their non-conference slate pretty early on as well.
Yeah, no. Look, I think realistic expectations for Oklahoma State are they're going to be considerably better than what they've been, which doesn't say much because they haven't won a Big 12 game in 2 years.
Right.
But 6 wins is considerably better than what they've been.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that that's their ceiling, but I certainly think that that's like reasonable expectations for a team that won 1 game last year and has not won a Big 12 game in 2 years.
The hype, I think you're bringing it down more to reality, because I have heard some crazy hype. Like,
and look,
they're the mainstream dark horse in the conference,
and that could very well happen.
Yeah,
but I still think they're probably 2 years away from that. Remember, Mestamaker, this is just year 1 for him here. He's got another couple years. I think a lot of this is set up for a team that could very well compete for a Big 12 championship in 2027. Mm-hmm. We'll see. Now maybe they can in 2026. Time will tell. It's Big 12 Today. Will Connolly is in today for James and Taman. I am Ari Temkin. Big 12 Today on a Modelo Monday. All right, on the way next, a Big 12 program that I'm willing to become a full-time fan of right now. And Pac-Man Jones, full circle moment. It's next. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Check us out at big12studios.com. You can join the YouTube channel. Just search Big 12 Conference there. You'll find the live stream of the show each and every day. James Faust, our buddy, in the YouTube chat. Real drivers don't use cruise control. Welcome back, RE Sports. I mean, when you're driving long distances, to just continue at a rate of speed, because the problem is a lot of times I'm on like a long trip. It's like 200 miles on the same highway, right? It's like, all right, now I'm at the speed limit's 70. Now I'm at 80. Now I'm at 85. I'm not paying attention. And then it's like, oh, I got to slow down. Then all of a sudden I look and I'm at 60. And so it's like, I don't know. I can't keep. And maybe that's what James is talking about, where I'm not a real driver. I'm not a real stock car driver.
Real drivers. Well, it's interesting if you live in a big city, too. It's so much more difficult to use cruise control consistently, really at any hour of the day. I mean, in DFW, are you using it that often?
No.
You're bumper to bumper half the time. So.
No, yeah. I never use it like driving locally, but when I'm on a road trip.
Oh, yeah.
Got to.
Mm-hmm. Let it cruise.
All right, I want to tell you why West Virginia is the team that I'm willing to become a full-time fan of this season, and part of it's because of the hype surrounding them with James. You know, to give James a little bit of credit here, he was the first on West Virginia buying kind of the optimism for them this year as a sleeper in the Big 12.
James in the comments? Or James Wesley?
Oh, good point. James Westling. Sorry, yeah, not James Faust. He's all Texas Tech all the time.
Okay.
But James Westling was telling me he's been talking up West Virginia throughout the offseason, and I feel like I'm starting to buy the hype. But a really interesting West Virginia story has started to make its way into the national consciousness surrounding Adam Pac-Man Jones, a name you probably haven't heard a ton about lately. But he went on a podcast recently, and take a listen to what he said.
Well, I was committed to Georgia Tech.
You're committed to Georgia Tech.
I was committed to Georgia Tech.
Stay home, basically.
I was going to stay home. I had offers from everywhere: Georgia, Notre Dame, NC State, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Miami, Florida. I pretty much could have went anywhere besides Michigan and Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And first I wanted to stay home. Then my grandma got sick with cancer. I was like, I got to get away from here. Just so mentally
it
don't drain me.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, Shane Gailey was the coach at Georgia Tech at that time. Yeah, I almost went to Georgia Tech. And then my boy Karen Fox, who went to Georgia Tech, who went to high school with me, played in the league for a good little while. He was like, bro, this school shit hard as fuck. I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, man, we got to go I said, y'all doing all the work? That one's off the list.
Yeah.
And so the visit I went to West Virginia, we wasn't doing no goddamn work. Work was football.
So a funny moment there where Pac-Man basically says he was going to go to Georgia Tech. He's from Georgia. He's from Atlanta. He was going to stay home. But two factors led him to not staying home. One was that his grandma got sick. His grandma primarily raised him. His dad was killed when he was a young kid. And so his grandma primarily raised him, and when she got cancer and got sick, he felt like it was probably best to go out of state to not be around that and the stress that would cause. And then also the work that he would have had to do at a really premier academic university like Georgia Tech versus West Virginia, where it was all football all the time. There's thinking about Pac-Man and how full circle all of this is right now. So Rich Rod, who took over in 2001 at West Virginia, had a really poor year his first year at West Virginia. And then, as part of his recruiting class, Pac-Man Jones, who was one of the top recruits in the country, remember, he ended up becoming the 6th overall pick of the Tennessee Titans. But he was very highly recruited, and on his announcement, he had a Georgia Tech hat on, took it off, and put on a West Virginia hat instead, and then helped, along with Chris Henry, the wide receiver, who was a part of the same class, recruiting class, helped to turn around West Virginia, and where they went, from 3-8 year one at a Rich Rod, 9-4 year two, and the rest is history as Rich Rod took off at West Virginia. So it's full circle now for multiple reasons. One, from West Virginia perspective, because this is year two once again for Rich Rod after a 3-8 season last year.
Mm-hmm.
So full circle there. But also, one of the probably more underappreciated stories about Pac-Man Jones is, what he's done with his life. And since, obviously having a lot of issues within the NFL in his early playing days of the National Football League, I mean, big-time player, right? Like a guy that was lived up to the hype for sure in his career, both as special teams ace and as a defensive player. But he and Chris Henry both were suspended by Roger Goodell in 2007. Kind of amazing. Then Chris Henry signs with the Bengals. This is before Adam Jones signed with the Bengals. Chris Henry actually played for the Bengals, but did not play with Adam Jones and the Bengals at the same time. They did play at West Virginia at the same time. They were in the same class and were drafted in the same class, right? So they were friends. Well, Chris Henry died, passed away tragically. Posthumously was diagnosed with CTE. And when he died, he had 3 kids. One was 3, one was 2, one was 10 months old. So left with their mom, who did not have much money to take care of them. Basically, over these years, Pac-Man Jones has served as a father to those kids, so much so that he actually adopted them a few years back. And the middle, Chris Henry Jr., is about to start his college career at Ohio State as a receiver after being the 7th overall recruit in this class. And there's a third brother who was 10 months old when his dad died, DeMarcus, who's a 5-star wing in basketball who's got Kansas and BYU on his list, among others. So very, very athletic family.
Yes.
But it's sort of a remarkable story for me because here we are like laughing at Pac-Man Jones, basically saying, like, I picked West Virginia because academically it was just a lot easier. I was not going to have to do as much schoolwork at West Virginia as I was at Georgia Tech. And yet, like, underneath all of it is sort of an amazing story here of 2 former West Virginia players that were a huge part of the rise of Rich Rod at West Virginia the first time, their connection and how that led to Pac-Man, after a tragic passing of Chris Henry, to basically adopt his kids, help to mentor them to the point now where Chris Henry Jr. is about to be a freshman wide receiver as the number 7 overall recruit at Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Pretty incredible.
It's a great story. And just hearing that cut as well, it makes you realize, and it's easy to forget sometimes, how emotional a decision can be to pick what school you're going to go to. I know the academic component of it is big, but I feel in the media, as us, we're so like, look at the NIL deal this guy's getting or this guy's getting. But it's like, it's an emotional decision. You think about how close you are to home, your family, your academics, and then look what he blossomed into being a top pick. And I mean, they've got a strong alumni base. I mean, of some great players who played well in the NFL. You obviously look at his buddy Pat and what he does, and they're great advocates for that program as well. So that is a phenomenal story.
And here we are with Rich Rod again, right? I mean,
yes.
That's the full circle aspect of it. The fact that Chris Henry Jr. is about to start his college career, and the fact that Rich Rod is about to start year 2.
And they were big fans of Rich Rod coming back, huge advocates for that.
And, you know, I mean, you think about like Matt Sieg and some of these late additions that they had to the recruiting class. There's just some parallels here between West Virginia then and now. I mean, adding, late in the process, like he did with Adam Pac-Man Jones, a couple of big-time players, one that decommits from Penn State because James Franklin leaves, the other who's undecided for the most part and then decides on West Virginia. There's some interesting parallels, and that leads me to, again, on this Modelo Monday, the Big 12 team that I'm sort of rooting for, beyond my team, which is the University of Kansas, my alma mater, would be West Virginia. And, number one, just the aura that Rich Rod brings. He brings a lot of energy to the Big 12 and to West Virginia. And it's something that I didn't initially anticipate because I thought, oh man, this is a retread. Who knows if it's going to be successful? Does he still have the juice? And yet there's been tons of things written about Rich Rod this offseason. Like, there's still juice nationally in covering Rich Rod. And that stuff matters a ton because we talk about the perception of the Big 12 all the time. The perception of the Big 12 is told by other people who aren't in the Big 12. The more they're interviewing and talking and profiling Big 12 players and coaches, the more the perspective of the Big 12 is told. And that's what's happening with Rich Rod a ton this offseason as he gets ready for an important year number 2.
It is interesting to see when a coach comes back to a place that they're familiar with, but that place has changed so much. I mean, we just talked about UCF last week, and I mean, there's a similar thing there. And it is, I mean, there's juice there. There's excitement. There's excitement for every program at this juncture of the year, but that is a great story, how they have a really strong alumni support, and that is a really cool story as well. Full circle moment with Rich Rod, and then adopting just phenomenal athletes as well.
Yeah, and for Rich Rod year 2, with the additions they've made, not only through the portal but in recruiting, that he's, I've said this throughout the offseason, he's built the right way with multiple year guys through the portal and obviously multiple year guys through recruiting, high school recruiting. Now it's about that alumni base organizing in a way where guys don't want to leave. Because I think that was the story of the Neil Brown era. Lots of talented players. Akeem Mesidor, who was the corner that they had that went on to go to LSU and is now in the NFL. I keep thinking of A.J. Halsey, but that's Houston. There's another one, too, that did the same thing. I think it was LSU that he transferred to. Regardless, there were tons of great players, elite NFL-type players that would come through, and that was it. They'd come through. They wouldn't stay. And whether that was because of coaching, whether that was because of NIL, commitment, whatever it was, that's the thing that has to give West Virginia the change here to have some sustained success. Because Rich Rod said it. This team can be pretty good this year based on the additions they made, but this is really a build towards 2027. In the same way that Oklahoma State is too, but maybe less obviously, because Oklahoma State has, at the quarterback position, a much more obvious successful player. We'll see if West Virginia can find one of those this year, which I think they will with Hawkins or with Fox. But ultimately, they've got to, as a program, get those guys to stay because they've recruited multiple year guys through the portal, which is completely different than what UCF did. I think what West Virginia did was the right approach. I question whether or not it's sustainable in terms of getting those guys to stay. That's the biggest question mark.
And speaking of those question marks, we are diving in head first tomorrow, all about West Virginia on our countdown to kickoff. It's continuing. So if you want full coverage on West Virginia, I mean, Ari Temkin is in midseason form, bringing it up, giving you a little nugget, but we're going to go full into them tomorrow as well, breaking everything down, the questions, what we know, what we don't know in our countdown to kickoff. And that's going to be exciting. You bring up Hawkins. I mean, think about all the new quarterbacks in the league that are on different teams but are familiar with the conference to an extent. I mean, that's an interesting position right there because he was a guy that was obviously really highly recruited, didn't work out in his first stop, and there's a lot of excitement for him coming in.
Yeah, West Virginia is certainly a surprise team to circle. The other one that we've spent some time talking about recently is Baylor, a potential surprise team. And we will focus on Baylor in our countdown to kickoff in the final hour of today's show, so make sure to stay tuned for that because, well, the Baylor story really starts in a court of law in a huge deal tomorrow. Deal and replace the word that I'm looking for, which would be
Trial?
Hearing, thank you. Hearing was the word. Deal hearing tomorrow that will help to decide the future of Baylor's defense this year with specific players. We'll get into that in the countdown to kickoff coming up in the final hour of today's show. We've also got the Big 12's non-conference report card coming up. We take a deep dive into the non-conference slate and answer some of the questions around the best possible win, the most important win, the most fun game, biggest upset opportunity, guaranteed win, all of those on the way. Plus, camp hype or reality. Houston's talking about 50 sacks. Arizona's talking about Desert Swarm 2.0. Is this camp hype or is this reality? We'll get into all that coming up. On the way next, though, BYU is talking national championships. Is it crazy or is it credible? We'll get to that next with Will Connerly. And today for James and Taman, I'm Ari Temkin. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Sorsby taking a shot. Touchdown, Cincinnati. Firing, connecting for a touchdown. Sorsby hits Cyrus Allen for the second time today.
And again, his confidence is growing.
Bart always said to commit to a school, not a coach. And that's why he has persevered in Cincinnati. second with an option pitch around the edge. Cyrus Allen is in. Touchdown, Cincinnati. Joe Porter back onto the field, top of your screen. Pressure comes. Cyrus Allen out of the backfield with his third touchdown. This offense has been unstoppable. Sorsby has 55 of the 133 rushing yards. Fires to the end zone. This time to Allen. Touchdown, Bearcats.
On Big 12 Radio, we are presented by Modelo. Of course, listened on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Check out the TuneIn app where you can find this show each and every morning. Plus, it replays immediately after, and you can also get the Big 12 Power Hours following. So a lot to get into on TuneIn when it comes to Big 12 Radio and all of the exclusive content. All right, well, BYU's talking national championship
They are.
in Provo.
They are talking national championship, and why not?
Why not?
Why not? I mean, there's a lot to get into there. We have some audio we can play. As I'm filling the shoes of Taman Turner and James Westling today, I apologize driving the car, we're back on the air and everything. We're never off, but getting on back on in a clean way. I mean, I can't throw my co-host Ari Temkin under the bus like that.
No.
Hey, we're back.
Yeah.
I forget we're so excited about BYU, and we're going to bring you that content now that I was like, we got to get back on the air right now. You know what I'm saying? We got to get back from commercial and get ready to go. But yes, they're talking. Why not? I mean, 12 wins last year. You got a great quarterback. You probably have one of the best running backs in the country. Why not?
So what's holding them back?
Receiver room. I mean, there's just question marks there. I think what's holding them back, too, is things outside their control. Perception. I mean, again, if you win the games in your schedule, you're going to be there. But you don't have as much margin for error as we saw last year.
Yeah, the wide receiver one, I think, is very much there. It's an obvious one in terms of being a weakness heading into this season. I think most people you talk to around BYU would say they feel good about JoJo Phillips as leading receiver and a guy that can, be productive. And then, Walker Lyons, the brother of Ryder, the 5-star quarterback who will be out this year, but in next year. But Walker is a tight end transfer from USC that I think also could factor in. I think there's also potential of regression here. Now, I don't believe it when it comes to Bear Bachmeier. I don't see him regressing, but it could happen. LJ Martin could regress. I think the defense could regress. And that, to me, in terms of regression, is probably the bigger potential regression than Bear Bachmeier and or LJ Martin. And that's because of the loss of the defensive coordinator. And while I'm confident that Kelly Papinga will help, will be good for this defense, it's not a next guy up kind of thing when it comes to Jay Hill. Like, he meant a lot. And that, Papinga will be different and hopefully for BYU fans as good. But until we see it, are there guys that developed really well under Jay Hill that may regress under Kelly Papinga? That's my concern for them more than anything. And I think you're totally right about perception. Perception is 100% an issue when it comes to a BYU program that's won 11 and 12 games in back-to-back seasons and hasn't really sniffed much of the conversation around the playoff.
And that's where I would say a couple years ago, if we did this segment, crazy or credible, I would say crazy. But they've earned the right to be credible, to be talking about national championship. It might sound crazy national perception-wise, but it really shouldn't. When you went 12-2, you played in the Big 12 championship game. You've got the reigning offensive player of the year who was over 1,300 yards. I mean, they've got all the pieces there offensively, I think, to be as good as they were. Yes, there's some questions receiver-wise, but I think those can be made up by how good their quarterback is as well. And so I don't think it's crazy anymore to be talking about national championship for a BYU team, although it did probably sound that way a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and it sounds in some ways crazy from the outside looking in. It does not sound crazy from the inside. But if you're around the Big 12, if you know about BYU, you're a fan, you cover them, or you listen to the show, it should not be a surprise. But, I think of conversations I had with friends of mine that are huge college football fans that are Texas fans, or they're Oklahoma fans, or they're Arkansas fans. And it's like, so who's going to win the Big 12? Is it going to be Texas Tech? Everybody going to be close to Texas Tech? That's the perception of the Big 12 right now from the outside looking in.
Right.
And so, BYU is really good. Really? Oh, yeah, I guess they were really good. Yeah. So, the perception is Texas Tech and a bunch of others. BYU is one of those teams where, they can help to shift the national perception of themselves and the Big 12 this year. Now, we'll get into a little bit later from a non-conference standpoint a big way they can do that, but I think even if they lose to Notre Dame, there's still ways in which they can get in the national consciousness in a way that they have not in previous years.
And I think they've earned that right. I would like to believe that the committee and all things around the college football playoff, the window of opportunity, if they put together another 12-win season, it would be hard to continue to have a team that's that good on the outside looking in. And what happened this offseason as well with Kalani Sitake, all the opportunities that he had to potentially go other places, I think that provided a lot of juice for this program because there's an element of we want to be here, we can win here, and we actually have proven we can win here, and we're going to continue to do that. And we saw that toward the end of last season with his comments about we should be here, we should have a seat at the table, and I think they are starting to move some other teams out and say, we're going to have a seat at the table. And when you talk about national championship, there's probably two teams in the Big 12 where it wouldn't be crazy to say, and I would say that's Texas Tech and BYU. That's not crazy to say they could get there and get into the playoff and make a run, and they have all the pieces there. Offensive line as well is another area where they have some veterans there. There's some continuity there, and when you have a quarterback and running back both returning, I think along with all the elements, like I said, with Kalani Sitake, there's a makeup for them and a window for them, of course, with the Notre Dame, where if they win that, it would be really hard to see them not being in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, based on what they do everywhere else. Bruce Mitchell, their center, one of the best in the Big 12 and one of the best in college football, is a big reason for their offensive line. They also added Andrew Gentry from Michigan, who started twice and played in 26 games at Michigan. He was a former four-star, was recruited by everybody, and now he heads to BYU. Here's what he said about this.
We want to win a national championship, and I don't think that's talked about enough. I think sometimes people think, oh, it's you don't want to mention a national championship. You don't want to think too far ahead. But at the same time, you need to talk about it. You know, I've been on a team that's won a national championship, and I wasn't starting that year, but played a lot of football that year on that team, and that was something we talked about all the time, is we knew we were going to go win a national championship, and we talked about it all the time. Because if you don't believe it right now, then you've already lost, right? If we don't believe that we can win a national championship, then who else is going to believe in us to win a national championship? And so I fully believe that we can, that we have the pieces to do it. But at the end of the day, we're not focused on that right now. We're focused on having a really, really good fall camp so that we can be in midseason form come Utah Tech, and then we'll beat Utah Tech is our goal, right? So that's the focus right now, is to have that overarching theme of winning a national championship, but that takes a process. And so we're not looking past that process. Our process right now is go have a great fall camp and then go beat Utah Tech week 1.
Now, look, this is not anything different than what's being said at a lot of other schools that also expect to be competing for a national championship. You know, I do some work covering the Dallas Cowboys for Haymaker, and like that's become a huge part of the Cowboys conversation, right? Is talking about the Super Bowl. And to me, it's like, you know, it's a Rorschach test, right? Like, you know, if you think that this is crazy talk, then that's sort of how you view BYU. If you think that this is normal and kind of the way that it goes around most camps this time of year, and like you should be thinking that, then, you know, I mean, again, it just, like, there's no wrong answer here on this topic. It's just all dependent upon how you view BYU, how you view this conversation, and that kind of thing.
But there is some teams where, and no offense, but if your alma mater was talking national championship in camp,
no question,
right? That would go down in the crazy.
That'd be a little
category,
weird, yeah.
Right?
That'd be a little weird, right? You're not winning a national championship this year,
and that's not the case, I think, with BYU though. And so when you hear it, you know, it's a fun clip to play, and it's like, oh, he's crazy. National title. They haven't been in the college football playoff, but it's like they've won 23 ball games over the last couple of years. They're in the best stretch of school history. They're continuing to build on that.
It's not crazy, but it's also a bit crazy.
A bit. But you have to have crazy belief in yourself to do something good.
And that's it. That's the crux of this entire conversation. Like, BYU is good enough to make the college football playoff. BYU is good enough to make the college football playoff. And once you get in, you can win it. But I think, like, a realistic goal that isn't crazy is making the playoff. Now, once you get in, as we've seen, it's tough. Texas Tech was as good as anybody in the country last year and got blanked in their college football playoff game, right? So these games are very tough with teams that are littered with NFL talent. These are tough games to win. So it's a little crazy from the standpoint of, like, you got to win multiple games there, but getting to the playoff is not crazy at all. And once you get to the playoff, you can certainly win it. And again, if you're BYU, why shouldn't you be thinking about this? You absolutely should make it a goal. I mean, I'm constantly telling my kids in life, like, set goals, have things you want to do, talk them into existence. That stuff works. Mind over matter. You have to be confident. You have to be positive. You think those things, ultimately, you know, will it happen? Was it guaranteed to happen? No. But is it likely to happen more so than if you say, we're not going to do it? If you start off the season saying we're not going to win a national championship, you are not going to win a national championship.
That's true.
There's a team saying right now that we're going to win a national championship that is going to win the championship. Mm-hmm. Indiana said that last year. They were 20th in the coaches' preseason poll last year. They said it. They might have thought it was crazy. Some other people might have thought it was crazy. They went 16-0, won a national championship. It wasn't crazy to them.
And look where BYU will be ranked to begin the year. Similar spot to where Indiana was, probably a little bit higher in that regard. And so I think the championship ceiling is there. Honestly, I think it will be determined by Bear Bachmeier. I know that's an easy answer, but you mentioned, hey, could we see regression? They were so good. Can he get even to a higher level? Which I think the obvious answer is yes. He's a young guy, sophomore quarterback. But we saw such great things a year ago. And then the elephant in the room as well is what you brought up with Texas Tech. I mean, you lost twice to them last year. To overcome that hump, national perception-wise, you'll have to go beat them on the field one time as well. But I think that they've got the ceiling. They've got the quarterback, and there's excitement. And college football playoff is the goal. It should be the goal for a lot of the fans. But if you're in the locker room, in any locker room, you never go out there thinking you're going to lose. You shoot for the moon. You may fall short, but you're still going to shoot for the moon.
Yeah, and even my alma mater, as you mentioned, it would be crazy to talk to them. We would talk national championship, but you better believe they're talking about the playoff and winning the Big 12, as they should, as realistic or unrealistic as it is, because it's impossible if you don't think it can happen. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen if you don't think it can happen. If you do think it'll happen, you give yourself a little bit of a window for it to happen. You mentioned Bear Bachmeier. Here's what he said about that year 2 jump.
Bear's a great young man. That's we start with that first. He was willing to do whatever it takes, and everything was kind of brand new last year, and maybe in a way he was a little bit naive, didn't know any better, and now that we're going into the second year, I think I wanted to see how he was going to respond in this new leadership role of being a starter as a true freshman, and I've been really impressed just with how he handles everything, and I'm really excited to see what he can do, and the thing that I've been impressed with the most is how loving he is as a teammate and how much he connects with everybody. I think most times quarterbacks are really close to the receivers and the O-linemen that protect them, but to see him connect with our specialists on our team and the defensive players, him and Tiger have been amazing with our culture because they're able to just thrive in it, but they also they preach it and they live it by just their example. So I think that's been the key. I wish I could take credit for it. They're just wonderful young men, and we have amazing young men on this team. And really the truth is I just try not to get in the way. I try to give them a platform where they can just thrive and develop as leaders and develop as men. And I'm really pleased with what I've seen so far. It should carry over to what they do on the football field, but I'm really pleased with the type of men that they are, and especially with Bear.
All right, and look, I think after having a freshman season like Bear had, and look, there were certain limitations that were exposed in the Texas Tech game, but there's probably going to be some talk about him regressing nationally. Just knowing Bear a little bit and then talking with Kalani and other people around him, I don't buy that there's going to be regression. Like, I think the kid's got the right head on his shoulders. I think he will be better year 2 than he was year 1 because he had so many limitations year 1 that are not on year 2. And for a guy that wants to get better, wants to be the best, and like that's half the battle with a lot of these guys. It's between the years. And Bear Bachmeier is very well put together between the years.
He is, and that was not Bear Bachmeier, but Kalani Sitake talking about his leadership role going into his sophomore season, and I think it's probably more important to hear from the head coach in that respect, the jump that you could see, and I'm really intrigued about that. And obviously that question mark that we've kind of kept going back to is the receiver room, and Kalani Sitake also talked about that if we want to hear.
We lost some great experience on the receiver room, so everybody's like, oh, how's that going to look? They're going to be fine. There's capable guys there that have talent. It's just a matter of who's going to be the common names right now. And I think we take for granted having Chase Roberts around for so long and playing so many games. I mean, he was Puka Nakua's backup, his freshman year, and so he's been here for a long time. And it's been really cool to see the leadership that he had on our program. But also, I love how he did it, passing the torch to the others. And now it's their time. I mean, I think this is an opportunity for them to become household names, and that's part about it. I'm excited to see them become known and with their playing ability. But the talent's there. We just got to keep putting it together, and then I need to do a great job of having these guys feel really confident in what they can do on the field.
Look, for me, BYU will win the Big 12 if their defense is as good as it's been. I really believe that because it's been elite. And I think that it's a defense that might take a step back this year due to a new defensive coordinator and certainly some statistics that tend to even out year over year, even though it didn't last year. That to me is the bigger piece than the wide receiver piece.
The bigger piece for me is we just finished week 1 of camp, and we're talking national titles and excitement, and it's just so much fun to see that. But, yes, new defensive coordinator, obviously that's going to be interesting, but they've got some pieces in place even on that side of the ball that they're going, like you said, I'm totally there with you. Defensively, if you can have that same level, you're going to be in the national championship conversation. And maybe that's aggressive. Maybe college football playoff conversation is a better way to start. But hearing from the confidence out of that locker room, it's good to hear.
Yeah, no doubt, and certainly warranted. Will Connolly, Ari Temkin. All right, more camp hype. Is it real or is it crazy? Houston, 50 sacks. Arizona's Desert Swarm 2.0. We'll dig into some of the big storylines around camp as camps are underway across the Big 12. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Well, he seems to be doing okay right now. As Barry Bachmeier's pass is complete for a first down to Carson Ryan. Big chunk yard runs here tonight. The 2 in the 40s, 1 in the 50s. Down to the end zone. Ryan! Oh, he has it. What a catch. Touchdown.
On Instagram, 1.3 million followers. It's a phenomenal museum with books from the last 600 years.
Well, the book on this offense is that it has a lot of potential. Ryan making the catch for the first down.
Redswell from the program. Bachmeier began to start.
Bear will throw another open man. Carson Ryan strolling in for the touchdown. Ryan's second of the season. There, Bachmeier with time over the middle. Completed midfield and a first down catch.
All right, Camp Hype versus Reality, along with Will Connerly. I am Ari Temkin on social at Ari Sports. You are at Will Connerly?
You had it. You have the elements right, but flip them.
Connerly Will.
That's right.
That's right. Follow Will on Instagram and Twitter via those handles.
I'm not good at social branding, so Instagram is Will Connerly, but X is Connerly Will.
Got it.
So
Okay.
I need to be like Ari Sports, just the same everywhere.
You got to be the same everywhere.
Same everywhere.
Although I haven't had much success on social myself, so maybe I'm wrong as well. All right, Hype versus Reality here. Big 12 today, presented by Modelo. Here are some storylines that we're tracking across Big 12 camps that are underway now, which is really exciting. So, Will, you introduce them, and then I'll kind of decide whether it's hype or reality.
Okay, so you're the ultimate authority here.
Not ultimately.
You are. No, you are. Give yourself some credit.
Thank you.
So the Houston Cougars, camp hyper reality. They're talking in camp right now about 50 sacks. They want 50 sacks this year.
Okay, who's talking about 50 sacks?
In camp, they're talking about that. Their whole defense is coming together, and they're aiming for 50 sacks.
Right, but was it their DC that said it? Who said it? Do we know?
Let me see one sec. I was reading the article the other day, but
It's all good. No worries. I'm not going to put you on the spot like that. So somebody at camp, they're talking about 50 sacks. So in 2024, Miami led all of college football, or 2025. What year is it? 2025. It's 2026. Last year had been 2025. Thank you. I know what year it is. Occasionally. Miami had 50 sacks last year, led all of college football. Last year, Houston had 28. But they were 15th out of 16 in the Big 12 in 2024 with 20. So they're going to go from 20 to 28 to 50. Oh, by the way, they lost one of their top sack getters last year in Walls. He's gone. Brandon Mack is back. He was the leading returning sack guy with 5.
And he is the guy that said they're aiming for 50 sacks.
Brandon Mack is the guy.
Brandon Mack.
He had 5 sacks last year. He's going to need more than 5 to get the team to 50.
Right.
This is camp hype. If Houston gets to 35 sacks this year, it would be a miraculous season for them. And it would, to me, indicate that this is an elite defense. You're not going to go from 21 year to 28 the next year to 50, especially with what they don't have returning. Now, I think Houston's defense is going to be pretty good, and I think they're going to have more than 28 sacks. 50 is a lot, and as we said with the Andrew Gentry quote about being national championship contenders, it's good to want things and have goals and set your goals high, and I hope that Brandon Mack is able to double his output from last year and get to double-digit sacks this year, because then he'd be living up to his end of the bargain. But if it's 5 sacks again for Brandon Mack, then we're talking about a guy that didn't really put his money where his mouth was.
Yes, and he said, his quote was, our goal is to just establish dominance with that group up front. Every great team starts with a great defensive line. And when you look in the Big 12 last year, Texas Tech, NFL talent on the defensive line, don't even think they got to 50. They have 41 leading the Big 12.
Yeah, only one team got to 50 last year,
right.
Miami.
So, I mean, I love the
They ain't
high
getting to
goal.
50, Houston.
Yeah, I believe that's camp hype as well. But it is interesting. Ashton Porter's another big addition for them. Guy from Oregon, played in the college football playoff run for them through the portal. They've got more talent on the defensive line. So I love Brandon Mack and what he says, but I'm agreeing with you that that's camp hype. But you don't need 50. I mean, if you get 10 more than last year, 38, you're toward the top of the Big 12, and that's probably more realistic. And
Yeah, I think 35 would be a great number for them. If they get to 35, that would, to me, indicate a huge season for them.
Absolutely. Okay, Arizona. Desert Swarm 2.0 is the conversation right now for Arizona. They're talking about having this defense, which, a little bit of context, I mean, their secondary was one of the best in the country last year. Did lose a lot of NFL talent, but they're talking about being Desert Swarm 2.0. That's some of the notes out of training camp right now. And so Danny Gonzalez, one of the guys I was reading in this Arizona Desert Swarm article, those were some of the quotes coming out saying, we want to be Desert Swarm 2.0, Camp Hyper Reality.
So Danny Gonzalez is their defensive coordinator. So did he mention Desert Swarm 2.0, or is it the writer making the connection based on quotes from Danny Gonzalez.
Exactly, the writer. Because his quote was, is there going to be a Swarm 2.0? We actually have the opportunity to make that a real thing, and I'm excited about that. That's exactly what Gonzalez said, their DC.
So here's the deal. Desert Swarm was built on the back of a incredible front seven. Last year's Arizona defense was all about their secondary. So it was the complete opposite of Desert Swarm. Not to say that Desert Swarm didn't have good corners, but it started up front with them. They were elite up front. That was not the case last year. This was an elite back end of the defense, which buoyed the front end, which was not very good. The defensive front for Arizona was 110th out of 136 at rushing the passer last year. 110th out of 136 programs in D1 at rushing the passer, with an elite back end of the defense. 4 future NFL draft picks in that secondary. They were 19th in total defense last year, 7th in pass defense, 21st in scoring D, and led the nation with a 97.1 passer rating against. They had more takeaways, 31, than touchdowns allowed, 28, 22 interceptions, second nationally, led college football in takeaways per game at 2.5. But 21 sacks. So we just talked about, 41 being the top of the Big 12 with Texas Tech. Houston had 25. Arizona had 21. So that part to me says this is camp hype.
Really?
Now, granted, the thing I've said about Arizona all offseason is they're not going to be as good at the secondary. They can't be.
No.
They have too many new pieces there, and so they can still be effective on defense. They just may not have as many turnovers. So they were really good defensively last year simply because of how often they turned teams over and how good their secondary was. They can still be good on defense by being completely different on defense, and I guess that starts with what they can have up front. We'll see if that ends up coming to fruition, though.
Yes, and I think it's interesting, and I got to give a shout-out to Brian Peterson because he's the one who wrote this article on Arizona Desert Swarm. Funny enough, the name of the publication, but he said Danny Gonzalez is their unofficial historian because he was asking him, when was the last time you guys finished top 20 in the country in defense in back-to-back years? We know they did it a year ago, and he quickly knew it was 1993 and 1994. And
Desert Swarm, right?
Exactly. And he also said the last time they had back-to-back years with at least 9 wins, 74-75. So the thing that is hanging over Arizona now is you've had good years here and there, but can you replicate back-to-back good years? And that last year, his first year as the DC, some continuity on the staff, I don't know. I mean, they're not going to be as good in the secondary. I mean, that's just a fact, losing all that NFL talent. But I do think you could see some continuity there, and maybe Desert Swarm 2.0 could look something like they did in the 1990s.
Yeah, and I think partly, too, when you are not as consistent of a football program overall, but you have, some pretty amazing historical context, like anytime you've got elite defense, you're going to be compared to the Desert Swarm. That's just sort of the nature of the beast, whereas, like, more consistent programs that are more consistently good don't have that because they're always good.
Right. It's kind of like you as a Bears fan, like any good defense is compared to 85.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, any good defense overall in the NFL is compared to the 85.
Right. And
so in that way, it's like such a good historical context coupled with the fact that you don't have like you just said. What was the last time they had back-to-back seasons with 7 wins? You said was 1974.
Last time with 9.
Got it.
Or more wins.
9 or more wins back-to-back seasons was 1974, 1975. Think about how many programs win 10 games every year.
Right.
It's not a ton, but there are multiples.
Yes, 100%. And
so I think it plays into the idea that, like, if Arizona has a good defense, it'll always be compared to Desert Swarm. Always. No matter what.
And the good defense, at least numbers-wise, last year, 19th in total defense, 7th in pass defense, 2nd in turnovers forced, and 2nd in turnover margin. So a historically really good defense.
Right.
And so if they can go back-to-back, 4 DBs going to the NFL is tough, and like you mentioned, only 21 sacks, which was toward the bottom of the Big 12. So that makes you think maybe a letdown, but I like what Danny is saying. I like what he's saying there. So
Well, they're going to have to be at 30 sacks at least to be effective defensively this year because, again, I don't think they're going to be as good in their secondary. They can't be because they're just not going to have 4 guys drafted again. If they did, it'd be amazing. I don't see it. So, like, they've got to really be better up front, and I think that will help their secondary. That is probably more about how the Desert Swarm defense was built more so than last year's defense.
But one thing Desert Storm might not have had is Noah Fafita. And if you're up by 7, 14, 21 points. I mean, teams are going to have to throw you the ball. They're going to have to be predictable. Secondary might not be as talented, but they're going to be up by a lot because they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
All right, this is camp hype versus reality. What do you have for us
You
next?
wanted to
in terms
move on. I hear you. We will go to Kansas now.
of dive storylines?
Okay, so this is interesting with Kansas. They lose one of their projected starting defensive tackles, suffering a torn ACL, Trayvon McAlpine. McAlpine. And so he was a guy, started his career at Tech, then had a good year at Tulane, and was going to come into this Jayhawks program and be a big cog on the defensive tackle position. And my question for Kansas as well is, there's some talk right now around this Jayhawks program, you would know better than anybody, is I'm wondering what's a bigger problem for them right now, the uncertainty at the quarterback position or who they just lost on the defensive line?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think like the obvious answer here is quarterback, but I think when you dig deeper, it's probably defensive line. Now, look, I think defensive line has a chance to be a strength for Kansas. I mean, Justice Finkley's a guy who was a former high four-star recruit out of Tech, coming to Texas, who transfers to Kansas and played pretty well last year. I think year 2 for him this year with Kansas. He could really explode and become an NFL prospect like he was coming out of high school. But the reason I go back to the defensive line in terms of the bigger concern here, quarterback or D-line, is because of the defensive coordinator versus the offensive coordinator. I have a lot more faith in Eddie Kotelnicki to get the quarterback situation right, and I have expectations that we're going to see both quarterbacks too. I think we're going to see both Isaiah Marshall and Cole Ballard. And I think the combination of that coupled with Andy Kotelnicki gives me confidence in the quarterback. Will it be elite? That remains to be seen, but I think it'll be good enough to help them win games. The question is their defense, which was really bad last year under first-year defensive coordinator D.K. McDonald. And if they can't improve this year, that's problematic because they were really bad last year. Mm-hmm. And 2 straight years of being horrible on defense, especially in the defensive line, is not going to cut it. If Kansas is to get back to a bowl game and have a successful year this year, it's going to be about their defensive line because I buy their offense will be fine. Will it be elite? I don't know, but it'll be fine. The defense is the one I'm not sure it'll be fine. That's the one that I'm concerned about. If I were to say, like, all right, one of these units is going to be average to above average and one's going to be average to below average, off the bat, I'll tell you the offense is probably going to be average to above average. If the defense is average, that's a bowl team.
Yes. And that's a big loss with Trayvon McAlpine. One of their defensive tackles was supposed to start. And
it's a guy coming off a big year for a playoff team in Tulane. No doubt about it.
Exactly. And so they're the team, too, for me, that they seem one of the hardest teams to project. And I know people in the Big 12 have talked about this as well. You see them toward the bottom just because of the uncertainty at the quarterback position. But I think there's a wide variety. I mean, you could see this. Is this a 3-win team or is this a team that could get to a bowl game? I think there's a big difference there because there's uncertainty with the quarterback position. Final one, obviously, you mentioned it off the top. We're under 3 weeks away until we kick things off. Dublin, TCU once again, national stage, week 0. Only Big 12 team, week 0. So it'll be the conference's first impression on the national stage. So no time for TCU. Nobody has more pressure than them coming into week 1. Is that camp hype, the pressure for TCU and the clock ticking?
No, because this actually works towards their advantage. We just talked about the Kansas team that will play 3 games and have a bye week and then play the rest of the schedule without a bye week. TCU has 2 bye weeks. They're the only team in the Big 12 with 2 bye weeks. And they have that because of the week 0 game they have. They play in Dublin week 0 against North Carolina. They come back. They don't have a game. Bye week. Then they play Grambling, Arkansas State, and then they have another bye week October 10th. So between Baylor and BYU. So, yeah, I mean, they're starting earlier. They're playing overseas. These are 2 things they did last year as well. Mm-hmm. So it shouldn't come as a surprise in terms of they've already done it. Now, I can't remember now. Is that a week 0 game?
Week 0.
It was. TCU, North Carolina was week 0.
Now, last year, I don't remember.
I think it was.
Yeah, it was a Monday. Wasn't it Monday night?
I think it was.
It was Monday night.
Yes.
Bill Belichick's debut.
Yes. So, yeah, and I think just like having the familiarity with North Carolina. I mean, North Carolina was dominated by the Big 12 last year, both by TCU and UCF in 2 separate games. So, yeah, no, I'm not concerned about them at all. What's the question here? Basically, like, is
It's just week one. They got.
Yeah,
I mean,
or
week
week
zero,
zero.
they got pressure. I mean, there's and also just the hype overall around the Horned Frogs. I mean, you bring in a new quarterback, you bring in a new offensive coordinator. You're kind of curious about what the Horned Frogs can do. And again, they're going to be on the national stage right off the bat. And there was intrigue going into that game last year. And North Carolina charged it down the field the opening drive. They said Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time in college level, and then TCU wipes the floor with them. So it was just interesting.
Yeah, and again, I think like TCU having 2 byes gives them an advantage that a lot of teams that don't have. It's again, Kansas goes overseas, Arizona State goes overseas to play each other in a game week 3. They come back, they've got their bye weeks, and then they're full bore the rest of the season. At least TCU comes back overseas, has a bye week, and then has another bye week into the season as well.
So no time for camp hype for them because they've got the time ticking. They'll be the first Big 12 team on the field.
Yep. 19 days away. It's Big 12 today. That's a little camp hyper reality, taking a dive into some of the camp stories across the Big 12. We've got our countdown to kickoff. Baylor coming up in the final hour. On the way next, though, let's do a deep dive on the Big 12 non-conference slate. What's the best possible win for the Big 12 in the non-conference slate? What's the most important win for perception for the Big 12 non-conference slate? What's the guaranteed win? We dig into all of these questions and more next. With Will Connerly, I'm Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today on a Modelo Monday, presented by our friends at Modelo. Heard on, tuned in, and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Touchdown, Utah. Under pressure, Dampier angles, caught. Did he get a foot down? He did. Touchdown. That's Dallin Bentley, the tight end. Two tight ends. Dampier on the roll. Going to the back of the end zone. It's a touchdown for Bentley.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. And if you're watching us on Big 12 Studios right now, and you can see myself and Will Connerly and some really cool merch behind us, including this sweet Baylor teddy bear, or West Virginia football, or Jayhawk stuffed animal, or
The helmet.
the helmets, all available through our friends at Rally House. Go check out rallyhouse.com and get your team merch today. Get you hyped and ready for the football season. Rallyhouse.com is where you get all your merch. All right, the Big 12's non-conference report card. It's time to go through some, 13 big power conference opponents for Big 12 teams?
13 Power 4 plus Notre Dame.
Got it. So what's the best possible win? What's the most important win? What's the most fun game? What's the biggest upset opportunity? Which loss would hurt the most and guaranteed win?
Yes, and just the premise of thinking about this as well is that we talked about it with BYU, perception, right? I think the non-conference slate is as important for the Big 12 as any league in the country in your non-conference, because you saw it last year. Look at the scoring margins in games. Look at Arizona going to BYU early in the season. That'll be a one-score game in the spread when the line comes out, when we looked at early projections a week ago. So the point being is the Big 12 needs to perform well in their non-conference slate, but they've got opportunity. Again, 13 games against other Power 4 teams and or Notre Dame. And so let's get things rolling. Let's look at some of those big matchups. We can give you detailed of the matchups that are there, but we'll start with the best possible win. Out of all the games on the slate, and if you guys need the slate, if you guys are in the comments, tell us what you think, but best possible win, Ari, for you, for Big 12 in the non-conference slate. Would you like me to start, or do you want to go first?
And just to, as a refresher, the Big 12 went 8-6 against Power 4 opponents last year. Split. They went 6-1 against the ACC, 2-2 against the Big 10, and 0-3 against the SEC. Right. So 8-6 looks pretty good. 6-1 against the ACC looks pretty good. I think it's the 0-3 against the SEC that doesn't look so good. And so I think that'll be a huge part of this. But your first question is, what's the best possible win?
Best possible win for the Big 12.
I mean, I think this is an obvious one, is it not?
It is. I mean, I think we'll have the same one.
BYU and Notre Dame?
Yeah, BYU over Notre Dame.
Let me say it this way. I think that there are three major non-conference games for the Big 12. Oregon, Oklahoma State, Arizona State, Texas A&M, and BYU, Notre Dame. Those are three major games for the Big 12. Hopefully, all three of the results of those games go in the way of the Big 12. Mm-hmm. Worst case scenario, the Big 12 is blown out in all three of those games, right? Which is what happened last year in Oregon, Oklahoma State. I think based on where Oklahoma State should be this year, that good game could be close. I don't think Oklahoma State will win, but I think it could be close. I think Arizona State, Texas A&M could be a blowout, but I could also see it being close. And then BYU, Notre Dame. Notre Dame's already a 10-point favorite in that game. They're really good and could be a national championship contender, but so is BYU. To me, that's the bigger piece here. Those three games, the Big 12 has to not get blown out. They cannot be blown out by three presumptive playoff teams. Notre Dame was not a playoff team last year, but they were close. Oregon was a playoff team, obviously, last year. And Texas A&M was a playoff team last year, right? So we're talking about three playoff teams from last year, 2.5, but Notre Dame was close, and three potential playoff teams this year. Do you have to win those games? Do you have to keep them close? That to me is the bigger piece. Keep them close. Be competitive. Win one of them. And the one win that would be most meaningful to me would be BYU and Notre Dame.
Especially because now with the new college football playoff and Notre Dame basically guaranteed if they're on the cusp of it. Yes, I agree. I mean, BYU over Notre Dame is a massive opportunity for the Big 12. If they beat them in October and they're in contention, I mean, that is such a boost. And that wouldn't be a perception win. That would be a college football playoff resume win. And I don't think there's a single non-conference result across the entire Big 12 that would mean more to the Big 12's playoff credibility than beating BYU beating Notre Dame. So I think that's a huge one. And it's not necessarily the perception. We'll get into that here in a second, but it's just the biggest possible one for a team going to the playoff. But I love how you brought up Arizona State. I mean, I was looking at their schedule. They play BYU. They play Texas Tech. They play Texas A&M. Not every team has to play BYU and Texas Tech. To play the top two teams, Arizona State, low-key, has a window of opportunity. If they go 2-1, they steal one of those. I mean, and then they have an A&M win on their schedule. That could be huge for the conference as well.
On our YouTube channel, Impeccable King 5234 says Iowa State over Iowa would be huge for the Big 12. That's one that's sort of off the radar, I think, because just from a preseason standpoint, where a lot of us expect Iowa State to be, Iowa's going to be very good this year. Iowa State's a huge question mark. But Iowa State has dominated Iowa within recent history. I think they've won 3 of 4. So that's a series that's been dominated by Iowa historically. Does it shift? Now, with that being said, and to disagree a little bit with Impeccable King 5234 here, Iowa State's beaten Iowa in 3 of the last 4 years and hasn't meant a ton in terms of the perception league. I think people have recognized that Matt Campbell has been very good at Iowa State, that Iowa State's been very good under Matt Campbell as a program, but I'm not sure it's given them the juice that like an Oklahoma State win over Oregon would give them, or a Notre Dame or a BYU win over Notre Dame would give them, or even a Arizona State win over Texas A&M would give them.
Okay. Most important win for perception. So different than biggest win. Could be the same, but perception, which my mind went, is it got to be something early on? Does it have to be something where people start talking about the Big 12 in a different way? Where does your mind go?
Why don't you start us?
Okay, so I'm starting us with Baylor over Auburn because it's Big 12 SEC. You mentioned the SEC and the struggles against the SEC a year ago.
Yeah, this was one of the 3 losses that the Big 12 suffered against the SEC last year.
Exactly. And so Baylor, with, I think, a lot of hype around them in certain areas. We'll get to that. We'll save all that. That's coming up next. But later in the show, Baylor over Auburn, I mean, that would be huge for the conference. To be able to go beat an SEC team early on in the season, I think that would help the Big 12's reputation, and it really should. I know one game, people aren't going to say, oh, the Big 12 is better than the SEC, but I think people will start talking about the Big 12 in a different way if one of your teams can go beat another team in a similar position in that conference. So I think Baylor over Auburn is the biggest one for me, and that would be a huge bonus for the conference.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that one specifically because I think your reasoning is right on. I just think I look at perception league and think more of go the other way. So my game here would be TCU in North Carolina.
Oh, if you
lose that game, the perception of the Big 12 is at a bad place. Versus Baylor-Auburn, which if Baylor beats Auburn, now you've done better against SEC opponents, which you did not do last year, right? So it's you can help your perception grow, you can help the perception league improve. I'm looking at it the opposite way, which is what's the loss that would be really detrimental to the Big 12, and I think it's that game. I also think there's an attention aspect of it. While Baylor-Auburn is a good game and is in a neutral site in a big environment, blah, 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 it comes in a week that it'll be kind of like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, barely top 10 in terms of games in the week.
Point. Mm-hmm.
All the attention is going to be on TCU and North Carolina. That matters a ton. So I think the most important win for perception for the Big 12 is TCU North Carolina from a standpoint of if TCU were to lose, the disappointment factor for the Big 12, especially because TCU is considered to be one of the better Big 12 teams. So if one of the better Big 12 teams goes to Ireland and loses to a North Carolina team that was god-awful last year, perception is going to be very down to the Big 12 early on, especially because of the eyeballs associated with that game.
100%. And speaking of eyeballs, we were looking earlier today about the national television schedule for other sports coming out, volleyball, soccer. But for football, the national television schedule, and I know it's in flex as the season goes on, but those Friday night slots, those can be really fun. And that's where my next question leads for non-conference slate. Again, really focusing on the 13 Power 4 opponents plus Notre Dame that the Big 12 will have this season. Which game do you think will be the most fun?
So that Baylor-Auburn game is a Friday night. No, it's Saturday. It's September 5th. Okay. I didn't know if it was a Friday night. I thought it was, for some reason, a Saturday, and it is. So the first one I think about is Kansas and Missouri, the border war. It's the first border war in Lawrence, Kansas since 2005. 121 all-time meetings between these two rivals. Missouri leads 57, 55, and 9 with that record. So I mean that's about as close as it could possibly get historically. Missouri returns just 26.5% of its defensive snaps, second lowest in the SEC, and is breaking in another unproven transfer quarterback. Andy Kotelnicki's back. There's reason for optimism in this game, and it'll be a fun game because it's a border war rivalry game that has not been played in Lawrence in 21 years, but also because there's potential for an upset here.
Really?
That's the one I went with. What about you?
That's the one I went with as well. My reasoning was just part of it was the day it comes on, Friday night. This one is Friday night, September 11th, Missouri, Kansas in Lawrence, and it's on Fox. You have that national television game on a Friday evening. I think that will be just one of the most fun games for the non-conference slate. Plus, when we're trying to have the appetizers for the main course coming on, I mean, for Kansas, this is going to be a great test. I mean, Ari Temkin's already talking potential upset here. I do think these games a lot of the times come down to the wire. You know that. And I think Friday night, national TV on Fox, I think it'll be a phenomenal game, but I also think it'll be the most fun because, yeah, the border rivalry is always great, and I think the regional hatred between those two teams is a lot of fun to cover.
I also think Colorado Northwestern could be a good one. That's going to be played, I believe, at the temporary stadium. So Northwestern's going to open up their brand new $862 million facility this season, but that doesn't happen until October. So Colorado playing in that rinky-dink lakefront stadium they had last year, Northwestern Medicine Stadium. Sorry, Northwestern Medicine Field at Martin Stadium. Like, it'll be a cool environment. You've got Deion Sanders and Chip Kelly going head-to-head. Kelly now the offensive coordinator for Northwest. I just think there's a lot of interesting parts to that game that will make it a lot of fun. So I think that's another one that's sort of under the radar, Colorado Northwestern.
That will be a lot of fun. And I think West Virginia is always just fun because it's another one of those rivalry-type games. But let's go on now to biggest upset opportunity for the Big 12 here.
So what are you thinking with this one?
If a Big 12 team win, like, you want my pick?
Yeah, your pick.
My pick?
And
okay.
How in your mind did this differentiate from, best possible win?
Well, I think best possible win, BYU over Notre Dame. That's okay. They're a playoff team. Biggest upset.
But that's also a potential upset.
It
10
is.
points at home.
It is, but I think when I look at upset and I looked at these 13 games, I thought which one would give me the biggest reaction of, like, really, they beat them? Oh my gosh. And the one game that came to mind for me, and this one does seem obvious because I would like to think, I mean, looking at these games, I could be wrong, but it probably would be the biggest point spread across the board, is Oklahoma State and Oregon. Oregon will be number 2 in the country coming into the season, and Oklahoma State, that is one of those where you have the reaction of, wait, what? Oklahoma State beat Oregon? So for me, biggest upset would mean you'd have the biggest shocking reaction, and I think that would be Oklahoma State over Oregon in that regard.
I think you can go a lot of directions with this one. You could go that direction. You could go A&M losing to Arizona State, because that could be like Cutter Boley emerging in a big way on his way to London for the Kansas game. Remember, Kansas is coming off the Mizzou game. Arizona State's coming off the A&M game, and they're both going out to London from there. Iowa State over Iowa was what was mentioned earlier. I think that would be a significant upset because it's early on in Jimmy Rogers' tenure, and it took Matt Campbell a few years to get Iowa when he first came there. So I think that would be another one. And then I think the game we talked about earlier, which is the Baylor Auburn game. You're going into Auburn territory, heart of SEC country, with a team without much expectations. It's sort of the exact opposite of last year, where you had high expectations coming off a really good season with the same quarterback and a defense you thought was going to be better, and the defense got absolutely destroyed by a running quarterback that looked really good against you week 1 and then did not look really good the rest of the year.
Yes. And speaking of Baylor, I'll go to my next answer next question. which loss will hurt the most for the Big 12. And again, I thought of it as also what you said, because wins and losses, they're going to be accounted for who had more points at the end of the day. But we know the committee doesn't just look at that. And the perception doesn't just look at that. Was it a one-score game? Did you get blown out? And I think what loss would hurt the most for the Big 12 is if Baylor gets absolutely smashed by Auburn. I think getting blown out, that would hurt the league more than any other blowout loss on the table right now.
Yeah, and blowout losses certainly. Now, ultimately, just losses. I think Utah losing to Arkansas would be a huge loss for the Big 12, because that is a very winnable SEC game for the Big 12. When you think about all of the SEC games on the slate in the non-conference for the Big 12, you've got Arizona State at Texas A&M, you've got Baylor at Auburn, you've got Kansas, Missouri, and you've got Utah, Arkansas. That's 4 games. They had 3 last year against the SEC and lost all 3 of them. And 2 of those 3 are games that are reoccurring this year: Baylor, Auburn, Missouri, Kansas. So of those 4, the one that's like a guaranteed win for me is Utah, Arkansas. So it'd be a really bad loss, because you might then go 0-4 against the SEC, number one. Number two, because Utah's viewed at the top of the Big 12. Arkansas is viewed at the bottom of the SEC, maybe mid-SEC. So that would just be really bad for the Big 12.
It really would. We are kind of running out of time, but quick hitters for you. Which loss would hurt the most? We already did that. Guaranteed win for you. Do you have a guaranteed lock, Ari's lock, that people can start locking in?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Cincinnati, Boston College, you could lock that one up for me. I think TCU, North Carolina, I just don't see TCU losing that game. I'd lock that one up. And then I'd also lock up West Virginia versus Virginia. Remember, Virginia won the ACC last year, and was close to a playoff spot. But Miami ends up getting that bid. But remember, Virginia, did they win the ACC or not? No, they lost. No, I can't. No, Duke beat Virginia in the ACC championship game.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. But I think that's a potential lock for West Virginia as well, because I think West Virginia's going to be pretty good this year. It's an under-the-radar game, West Virginia versus Virginia. The last thing I'll say on this is the way to go scheduling. Who gets the way to go scheduling award? So there's 4 teams missing from these 13 games. Did you notice that? They would include Texas Tech, Kansas State, Arizona, and Houston. 0 non-conference games against Power 4 opponents. So way to go scheduling for K-State, Arizona, Houston, and Texas Tech. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Last couple of weeks, we've done a series talking with each athletic director across the Big 12. Doug McNamee, the new athletic director at Baylor, joins us next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
You still have one-on-ones across the field, and you've got number 88 to the bottom of your screen against a shorter defender.
Hoover again. Crossing pattern, end zone, caught, touchdown. It's a moot point now. It's Rogers, the tight end.
4 hours from campus in Fort Worth. 5 wide here, and all sorts of time for Hoover with a dime down the middle of the field. DJ Rogers, the tight end, sets up first and goal for TCU.
The Red Raiders might say, if you could just get a redo on that one. Big play to DJ Rogers, the tight end, rumbling. DJ Rogers all the way down to the 25-yard line. Big gain there for this TCU offense.
Hoover 6 of 7 in this opening drive. He'll keep it. Just tosses it to DJ Rogers, and TCU on the board first. Snap back. That's always a good job by a defender.
Hoover, he does it again. No problem. DJ Rogers has it inside the 10, all the way down to the 8.
Hoover pulls it to the tight end, DJ Rogers. His second touchdown of the season.
The backfield as it was Barnes by himself for a moment. Swings it out. Rogers breaks the tackle, stays on his feet, is decked out of bounds at the 30.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. Heard exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios alongside T-Chains, Taman Turner. I'm James Westling, and we welcome in a couple of ADs this hour. And now we head down to Waco, Texas. The newest athletic director in the Big 12 is Doug McNamee, and he joins us here on Big 12 today, live on the program. Doug, nice to finally meet you because I was absent from Big 12 spring meetings. And I guess going into like the interview process with Baylor, you probably had 2 or 3 things that you would bring to the table in terms of, let's get some stuff done once I am hired. What were those items, and where are you at just in terms of the process?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm a seasoned veteran. Fernando Lovo at Colorado has me beat by about a week in terms of newness. So I'm 15th on the longest tenured at Big 12 athletic director, thanks to Fernando. So I got to keep that out there. But yeah, I really put 3 commitments in terms of what we focus on. In this order, it was fan, funding, and football. And that's strategic in that order for a reason. I really felt a need for us to reconnect and to remind ourselves why we're here and who we're here to serve in regards to the fan. Obviously, in college athletics right now, funding is the name of the game. You need resources, and then we would be lying to ourselves if we didn't acknowledge the stakes that football carries in every college athletic department, especially in the Big 12 in a Power 4 institution. And we certainly need to, after last year's season, rebound in a positive way. So those were the 3 initiatives. How we're doing on it, I'll probably say let's see where we are in about a month when we kick off. I guess we're a month away, but really on the first 2 pieces, really encouraged, very optimistic in terms of the response, the connection. Now we need to just go out and deliver the commitment that we've promised to our fans, and then with that, I think the funding will ultimately flow as well too.
Doug, piggyback off of that, you guys have spent some money to bring in some guys to really help this football program. You guys brought in Joe Klanderman as your defensive coordinator. You guys brought in DJ Lagway as your quarterback. Now with those guys being a part of the Baylor family, what expectations do you guys have now moving forward with Dave Aranda still at the helm, and what do you guys expect to see this season?
Is so impressed and so appreciative of Coach Aranda's foresight to make a move. He ultimately moved himself out of D.C. and made himself just isolated as a head coach, and I think that was a very wise decision. He's proven as a CEO with strong coordinators what he can do in the past, and I think he found an absolute winner in Joe Klanderman. I mean, I think we were exceptionally fortunate to have gotten him. If you look at where all K-State's guys from defense last year ended up, I mean, they're top-tier guys across the country, and they were a hot commodity, and a lot of those guys came in as 3-star, 2-star type players, and I think Joe Klanderman was a big part of coaching those guys up. So really, really pumped about the defense. DJ Lagway, special story. He's a legacy. I watched his dad play coming to games, and so he's always held a connection to Baylor. He took a recruiting visit even when he was the number 1 recruit in the country from a quarterback perspective, and kept us in contention until he ultimately selected Florida. And it's a special story for him to have the chance to come back home, and both sides need each other. I think DJ needs Baylor, and Baylor certainly needs a DJ, and a DJ at his best. So really excited, with practice kicking off here in actually about 30 minutes here in Waco, just to get to see him get after it.
Doug, you were the president at one time of Magnolia, Chip and Joanna Gaines Company. Did the same at Field and Stream, which is backed by like Eric Church and Morgan Wallen. So with that like brand and media executive skill set, how is that translated to athletics? From what I've read from your press conference, like you wanted this Baylor AD job for a long time. It's a passion of yours, this program and that community. So which set of skills have translated the most?
Well, two things. First of all, I would say, had I stayed in college athletics for the last 8 years, I have no doubt I would not be prepared for this job like I have been, having had that chance to leave and get that experience at 2 different media companies. Two themes come to mind. First of all, especially with this most recent venture, it was a startup. We had to go raise the money, had to go find the funds to go buy the assets, and you got to go in and ask people and look them in the eye and tell them and paint a vision for what you think that you're going to do. And oftentimes, and it was our case with startup as well, but we didn't get enough money at the first go, so you got to go back to them and ask for more money. And that's pretty comparable to the environment that we're in right now. And sometimes your return delivers pretty quickly, and most times it takes more than what you originally expect. So I think in the environment that we are currently operating, that has certainly helped prepare me, and also the emotional piece where when you're asking for someone else's money, you feel a greater sense of pressure and responsibility than if it's your own. Like I think a lot of people would say this, but I definitely would have a heck of a lot easier time wasting or losing my own money as compared to somebody else's, because there's an emotional weight that you carry when you're in that spot. The second thing I'd say that's common both from athletics but into those two media entities is there's an emotional connection associated with those brands. And people talk about, are the entertainment industry, or in the hospitality industry. Here's what I know: we're in the memory creation industry, and I can speak from a personal standpoint. The emotional connections that I have to family members, both that are here and both that have moved on, and it's often centered around sports. And so that's what we get to do. And we had that pleasure with two media companies that really resonated with people in a deep emotional connection. But that's what college athletics is about. And there's people that are going to walk into our stadium, a month from today, and they're going to make a memory that's going to last a lifetime. And we all have the honor and privilege to get to be in the business that produces those moments.
Doug, what's your relationship like with Brett Yormark, and can you explain your thoughts on the Monster Energy deal and how it affects Baylor?
Yeah, well, unsurprisingly, there's definitely a connection there, because I would say he was an outside-the-box candidate and came from the media industry and worked in professional sports. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that initially when he was hired was like, who and what's the connection to college athletics? And then you understand what he's done. And so I certainly think his candidacy for the Big 12 and his success was helpful for me personally in my own experience to get this opportunity. He's gonna go out and he's going to disrupt, and he's going to challenge status quo, and he's not going to be afraid to miss, and that's the courage and the willingness that successful leaders operate under. And he's hit a lot more than he's missed as a leader for us. And I just say that specific to the Monster Energy deal, a lot of mischaracterization of what that deal is and comparisons that are just not apples to oranges. And so appreciative of his efforts, his willingness to disrupt, to go challenge, to go find funds that aren't on the table for us otherwise. And I'll also say the thing that people miss a lot of times, especially when they're comparing to other deals, you don't know the other value, the additional value that's associated with the partnership beyond just what looks like a top line dollar amount. There's extra opportunity and brand association that comes along with that, and it's reciprocal and has to be for both sides. So I would just say appreciative, and grateful for both his efforts on that specifically, but for all he's doing for us as a conference.
Yeah, Doug, what do you think the biggest misconceptions are about the Monster Energy deal?
A biggest one is just that it's gonna prohibit us from getting our own school deals, and we've got numerous Big 12 schools that have already announced theirs. We're deep in multiple conversations, and so these comparisons to other conferences and their individual school deals is just not relevant. Those are two different conversations. The inventory that was monetized in that is Big 12 inventory, and Brett made a decision on behalf of the conference that he felt like it was valuable to essentially share that real estate with a third party in exchange for compensation to our schools and co-branding with our schools. And so that's the biggest one. We still have the opportunity as Kansas, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, there's BYU, there's numerous schools that have announced it, and we'll have a great partner on there as well soon. But we're all still able to do that, and they're a big national brand with a huge marketing budget that will also cross-promote the Big 12 as part of the partnership.
We're live here with Baylor AD Doug McNamee, live here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Doug, I want to pivot over to basketball. You have a proven winning head coach in Scott Drew. What are the expectations for the Baylor basketball program this season?
Yeah, it's an interesting time. Coach Drew is a dear friend. I owe my introduction to my wife to Coach Drew, and an interesting position, because as a Baylor fan, you see a Coach Drew in just a kind of a legendary status. What he's done and what he was able to do here just puts him in a unique position in terms of any Baylor fans, all-time appreciation, and I'm no different. And so now to pop into a seat, he was a longtime friend, now to pop in a seat that I have now, at a time, candidly, where it's been tough. He's experienced so much success that any challenge, any not making the tournament is seen around here as a great disappointment, whereas before he got here, that was the standard that we operate under. So, Coach is also challenged by the NIL environment because he's so good at relationships. He's so good at going out and finding guys, redshirting them, developing. If you look at that 21 national championship team, you got a lot of fourth-year and fifth-year guys who have been redshirted. And unfortunately, the game has changed where it's year by year, and that's been an adjustment for Coach. I think he's made it very well over these last few months and over the last few years, and gotten himself. First and foremost, I'm excited about the staff that he's assembled. He brought back Jerome Tang. He's got Jake Lindsay on that staff. There's a former player that played for us in the 21 and 22 years, and 23. It's just a really respected, great player. Came from working in the NBA front office, and Jonathan Chamo-Chachua. And he's just put a great staff together. So I'm very optimistic. I think the roster is strong, but at this point, everyone assessing the people that do preseason rankings on basketball, none of these guys have played together anywhere. How are we making those assessments? But we feel really good. And then I have a really great appreciation for Nikki Collin and our women's basketball program. A really tough spot for someone like her to step in following a legendary Hall of Fame coach like Kim Mulkey. And I think she's done exceptionally well, maintained a level of excellence. We certainly want to get back to the Sweet 16 and Final Four on a regular basis, but really proud of our women's program and very optimistic, just like we've been the last few years. We're going to be at the top, fight for a Big 12 championship in that sport as well, too.
Doug, I love the comp that you made with kind of your track record of success and Commissioner Yormark before he became the commissioner at the Big 12, leaning on that media side and entertainment and brand awareness and all of those different characteristics. So in today's era of college sports, in your opinion, how do you see sports coexisting with the entertainment value and the brand value, and just how much those two worlds have now collided?
For sure. I mean, we have to understand, for almost all of us, the number one input from a revenue source is our media contracts. And that is a complicated space that's seeing significant disruption and challenges every day as well. And, we have to face that. We've got to prepare ourselves to be the most attractive, desirable media platform we possibly can to continue to grow our revenues. And not only the monetization of it, but we also need to acknowledge, as we relate to our university, our mission at Baylor Athletics is to support Baylor University. It's not complex. We want to give Baylor University more visibility because we think it's exceptional student experience, and the more that Baylor Athletics can promote it, the better. But the media platform gives us a chance to tell our story for the university. So it's an opportunity, it's a platform, but it's also a massive revenue stream for us, and we just have to be very thoughtful. What creates compelling entertainment? Because that's what's going to drive. Viewership is essential. As we talk about attendance, that's important. But I'll tell you, the one chart that sits right in front of my desk right here is our viewership in football last year. And we got to get more people watching Baylor football specifically, because I owe it to Brett Yormark in the Big 12 Conference to deliver more eyeballs, because we need that for the next media contract. So that's what it's all about, and how we need to be focused as an institution, but as a conference as well, too.
Well, I just want to add before we let you go, as somebody who has announced games for television networks in Waco at Baylor, and I know a ton of announcers feel the same way. You guys have an elite TV, full production control room. It is amazing.
I appreciate that. I give a lot of credit to our previous administration and Mac Rhodes and our president. They did invest, and it's, as I learned, James, I didn't know enough to really understand it, but in some of my early trips over there, to see the control rooms and the ability for the big networks of the world to come in and send a light crew because they can run everything out of that. Really proud of that, and I think from a conference standpoint, we're proud to be a leader for the Big 12 in terms of the way that the games are actually produced for our media partners.
Yeah, it's an incredible product. Doug, so nice to meet you. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your
later.
day.
What Big 12 AD is coming out a little bit later? I want to know who's following me and make sure we can give him some grief.
Okay, Eddie Nunez, Houston.
Okay, all right, good deal. Well, please give him grief for me, and I love Eddie. You got a good one coming on. So thanks for giving me time, and I'm glad I'm going first instead of having to follow Eddie.
There you go.
For the record, technically you were second. We had Kirby right before you.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, you should have told me that. Whoa. Oh, there, you got two good ones right there. I love our Texas Big 12 partners in those guys. And Mike Buddy's another good one. I wish I didn't like that guy so much. It would be much easier to dislike Mike Buddy, but he's a good one as well too.
Yeah, it's a Texas tour today.
That's right.
Great to see you, Doug. Thank you so
guys.
much.
Anytime.
All right.
Enjoy
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate
it.
The Baylor Athletic Director, Doug McNamee, joining us here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Some really, really insightful stuff from just the way he views college athletics, and Baylor's got a good one in Doug, no doubt.
Yeah, they got it right. They got a green light with Doug. He is a gem. We've had two really good ADs coming up, and I know we have Eddie Nunez coming up in about 10 minutes. But, man, it has been a phenomenal. We got a lot out of both Kirby and both Doug. And let me ask you this. What were your biggest takeaways from each AD?
Oh, man. So I thought the way that Kirby Hocutt outlined the Brendan Sorsby off-season saga was really enlightening, because he was very, I thought, transparent about just how quickly that snowballed, and how Texas Tech, in my opinion, based off what he told us, really didn't have a lot of time to come up with a PR strategy to navigate that situation. And I love transparency and vulnerability, and he was not afraid to say, yeah, we'd probably do some things differently, while at the same time having nothing but tremendous things to say about Brendan Sorsby as a person. So that stood out to me. And then just their line of thinking with the Galaxy Stadium naming rights and the potential for Galaxy to be even more involved with the university. It's already a $75 million deal. So the potential on top of that, man, big time out in Lubbock.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I very much enjoyed his respect that he has for Brendan Sorsby, but also his respect that he has for his program and things they could have done differently. And sometimes in the moment, it can be very difficult to maneuver things. And you look back on it and say, hey, we could have done this or we could have done that. And Kirby Hocutt admitted that. But having respect for Joey McGuire and what he's done, having respect for Brendan Sorsby and what he has done, and having respect for his future endeavors. For Doug McNamee, I really liked what he brought up about the Monster Energy deal. How there's this notion, this perception that the schools can't also, do stuff outside of the deal, and that's just simply not true. I mean, and he gives respect for Yormark, kind of being a boxer, kind of going at it, taking on what's been the norms, and kind of bringing out these new ideas, and I think that's great for Baylor, and I also think it's great for the Big 12.
The individual schools can still have jersey patches, on-field, on-court branding from other partners that, sure, it's not going to be the equivalent of the value that Monster Energy is bringing to the conference, but for that individual school, it's actually going to be more. So that's on top of the Monster Energy deal, or the Monster Energy deal is on top of the individual school revenue that was just sitting there, the opportunity. It was a wide open space.
Right. 100% agree. And I love how Doug kind of broke that down. And I also liked, how he talked a little bit about basketball too, because he has enormous respect for Scott Drew, who he gave us a little story. He introduced him to his wife. But when Baylor won in 2021, there were some expectations that grew, and they want to rebuild this basketball program to the prominence that Baylor fans kind of saw during that season. And he talked about what the Scott Drew has done with the coaching staff, bringing back Jerome Tang, who was enormous to help Baylor win that championship. So I really think that Doug McNamee has been he came in at a very difficult time for Baylor, and I think that he, being a Baylor alum, knowing this program, knowing kind of working with college athletics but also working away from college athletics, gives him a perspective that is really unique in a way that I think is a perfect fit for Baylor University.
Yeah, very well said. Really like it. Doug McNamee, the new AD at Baylor, was our last guest. We will take a break, and we will kind of set the table for Eddie Nunez, who joins us at the bottom of the hour, the AD at Houston. Houston preseason ranked in the top 25 of the USA Today coaches poll that came out yesterday. men's basketball, loaded roster for Kelvin Sampson. Eddie Nunez will be with us here in about 6 minutes. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are brought to you, powered by Modelo here on TuneIn.
Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Thanks for hanging out with us today and every day here in your home for the Big 12. We've been doing a series throughout the offseason because full-time fans from Modelo know that the offseason never sleeps. It doesn't mean off, it just means research. And we have reached our final penultimate, I guess if you will, series of the season, of the offseason, called the Countdown to Kickoff, and we're focused on Baylor today, answering questions. What do we know? What don't we know? What has to happen for Baylor to contend? Daily urgency angle, what matters the most right now? Camp battles to watch, injury news, depth chart locks. Is Baylor a sleeper team? And with Baylor, I think it starts with court. And you basically have a day off today after 3 of 12 camp practices already happening. Tuesday, they're back to work. And Tuesday is also the day that a McLennan County judge decides whether the best defensive player on the roster is allowed to be on the roster. So we'll know more about Hosea Wheeler, who transfers over to Baylor from Indiana to man the middle of that defensive line, if he's eligible to play, based on what a judge decides tomorrow.
Starts in court. Didn't think you'd say that about a team preview, but it certainly does. And so hearing tomorrow, that'll be intriguing to watch. But what we know, what we don't know, that changes the – we talked a little bit about it with Kansas, and I think with Baylor even more so. I mean, that's just – like you said, there's no other way to put it. Your best defensive player, it hangs in the balance on a hearing tomorrow.
Yeah, and what we know, we know DJ Lagway is the starter. We know that Lagway has done everything you possibly can do in this offseason to give you optimism about his first year at Baylor. Leadership, work ethic, the measurables, it's all there. Now he's just got to put it together on the football field. But we know, not necessarily that DJ Lagway is going to be effective. We do know, though, that he's going to be the starter. I also think that even without Hosea Wheeler, this is still going to be a very good defensive line. In fact, we know I think this defense is going to be pretty good under Joel Klanderman. But, I mean, Garrick Ponder, Brian Davis was added from Kansas State. He comes over with Joe Klanderman. Jamal Weiss from Marshall. Cameron Washington from Texas State. Even Dave Aranda told us at media days that, last year they probably spent too much money on wide receiver and not enough money on defense. Well, they've done that this year, and I think their defense, especially their defensive line, to me, I know that that's going to be good, even without Hosea Wheeler, because of what they've done, both in bringing in Klanderman, but also what they did from a personnel standpoint.
You bring up Lagway, I think he changes the ceiling for this team. I mean, and I think as well, they need him to be really good. But the optimism is he can be really good. But the ceiling for Baylor shot up when they got DJ Lagway, but they do need him to be special. I mean, being pretty good quarterback, they had a pretty good quarterback last year. I mean, they need an elevated level of play here this year, but we do know.
They had really good quarterback play the last 2 years. It was their defensive issues that got in the way, and I think they fixed that by reassigning Aranda as more of the coach and letting Joel Klanderman be the defensive coordinator. In 2025, Baylor was 135th out of 136 FBS teams in turnover margin per game at minus 1.4. Baylor could not create possessions and could not stop giving them away. So, for me, it all boils back to that. They were considerably better in the turnover margin 2 years ago. Their defense has been bad for 2 straight years. So the common denominator here is the turnovers. If that improves, so will Baylor.
And I think the biggest way to create turnovers is be good up front. Dominate the line of scrimmage, create chaos. And like you said, Aranda basically mentioned we put our resources into building a team from inside out. We haven't done that in the past. And so that is a focus of what they have. They have a quarterback they believe in, but the optimism of, hey, inside-out roster building and making that a priority on the line of scrimmage, which some of that hangs in the balance, like we mentioned with a hearing tomorrow. But that is going to be the most important story for Baylor moving forward is, can they dominate the line of scrimmage in this conference?
And what we don't know is also dependent upon that, and that is what we talked about earlier, which at the front end is, are you going to have a starting center in Walker, or are you going to have a starting defensive tackle in Hosea Wheeler? Wheeler got better news on a temporary restraining order, or on the injunction, I should say. Now he needs the temporary restraining order. It's the opposite. He got the temporary restraining order. Now he needs the injunction, I should say. Walker, their presumptive starter at center, has not received the temporary restraining order.
Right.
So he's got to let it play out in real time, and probably will miss some games in order to do that. So what we don't know is who mans the center position for Baylor without Walker, and does defensive tackle start with Hosea Wheeler? I think those are two important things we don't know about.
Absolutely. And we know David Smoke will have a ton of hot sports opinions coming up on Baylor. We're going to talk to him coming up next. But eligibility issues, certainly. The offensive line has to protect Lagway as well. And we've talked about sleepers on this program. Is Baylor a sleeper in your eyes a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I think defense has been their big issue the last 2 years. I think they've got that fixed. I think based on their schedule, there's a lot of factors for me that see Baylor as being a team that could potentially outpace what their expectations are. I also think from a question mark standpoint, what we don't know, Travion Barnes was supposed to come in here and be a big-time player for them last year, missed the season with injury, and then Connor Hawkins was dynamite as place kicker last year. He's off to Ohio State now. So, who kicks? Who's the place kicker for Baylor as well? I think that's a huge question mark.
And one thing we know as well is that this is a team that cannot afford to start slowly. Right out of the gate, you're playing Auburn. So Atlanta, Georgia, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, playing Auburn, first game. I mean, you have to be ready week one. You cannot start slow.
What has to happen for Baylor to contend? I mean, we talked about it with the turnover margin. I mean, they were terrible from a turnover perspective last year. They couldn't play defense. They couldn't get turnovers, and they could not stop turning the ball over on offense. That is a recipe for disaster. 2 years ago, they were pretty good at turnovers, but weren't as good defensively. This year, I think for turnovers, if they're able to get that margin per game to zero from minus 1.4, I think they'd be better. If they can get into the positive, even better. I also think, what has to happen for them to contend? Their offensive line has to coalesce. That's been a strength for them the last couple of years, especially the interior. That's got to, there's question marks around that. That's got to figure itself out. And I think you've got to win the games you're supposed to win, and you've got to beat Auburn week one.
100%, and I love how you brought up the offensive line. You have to protect DJ Lagway because let's not forget, yes, he's talented, ton of arm talent, dual threat guy for you. Let's not forget he turned it over a lot. He threw 23 interceptions in 2 seasons, including 14 last year at Florida. So he needs good protection, and Baylor has to have it, and that is a big question. Yes, they focused on it in building their roster, but let's see it play out in the field, and you're going to get an opportunity to see that week one against a team in the trenches in Auburn.
All right, this is Countdown to Kickoff Baylor. David Smoke from 365 Sports joins us next. He's covered Baylor for a long time, and Smokey will get us up to date on everything we need to know on the Countdown to Kickoff Baylor. As we continue our series here covering Baylor football, it's the Countdown to Kickoff with Will Connerly. I'm Ari Temkin. It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
And a quick slant again that's caught, and look out, Kobe Prentice, his second catch of the early hours of this one in the evening.
Yards. The one miscue. Oh, no miscue there. Touchdown, Kobe Prentice. His 6th of the year. Only 17 catches. All he does is catch touchdown.
Offset right as Robertson begins his drive. Steps up in the pocket. He pushes vertical. That's complete. Already inside the 30 of Houston.
Sawyer did a great job navigating that pocket. But watch Prentice on the back end. The route on the outside buys up one of the...
We're aided. A bounce from Oklahoma State. Wide open. Running free. Kobe Prentice. Give the man 6.
Just speed. You're talking about speed. Nothing to it. Just one right pass.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. It's our countdown to kickoff Baylor football. Joining us now to talk Baylor is David Smoke from 365 Sports, who's long covered Baylor and now does a great job with 365 Sports covering all college football and specifically the Big 12. Smokey, how are you, buddy?
Ari, we're doing well. Will and I are, before the segment, solving college athletics' problems. And
way to go.
To me, the answer, hire the attorneys who are representing players who are like oh, gosh.
Yeah, that's the right. I think you're onto something there.
They are doing well.
I don't think they have enough money to do it.
Yeah. Their on-base percentage, if it was in lawsuit.
Oh, yeah.
The NCAA's won a few, but they can't rest too long before, oops, that is a loophole. Yep.
Yeah, I would say like the NCAA's like a 115 hitter, and the players' attorneys are like a 390 hitter.
Yep, absolutely, man. You're 100% right. Yep.
All right, let's talk Baylor football, the countdown to kickoff. What are the cat battles that you're most intrigued by?
Well, they have to have an issue now. They lost the lineman to eligibility, Yakuri Walker. So they've got to find out who's going to replace that. They felt pretty good about their offensive line with Sirakis on both sides of the ball. Wide receivers seem to be okay. They're not going to have like a starting running back. They will, like Pendergrass, but they've got like 3 or 4, like a hybrid position. One's a banger, one's a slicer, one's kind of a, Pendergrass is healthy, which is a big deal. They missed him last year. I got to answer your question with one position. I would say they got to figure out the wide receiver position has people. They have Lewis Brown, who's a big, tall drink of water. Miller, who came in from Colorado, who's from Texas, that DJ knew. Freeman was at Florida, DJ knew. But they got to find out, do they have an alpha? Do they have somebody on – remember Tyquan Thornton, the 2021 team? They had other receivers that were good, but Tyquan Thornton, they were going to find him on 3rd and 8 or on 2nd and 12 to make it more manageable. I know that there's going to be a lot of Baylor fans are going to, wait a minute, what about the defense? I think there's so many moving parts with the defense, and they don't know about Jose Wheeler, if he's going to be eligible, which would be huge. I think that there's just so much going on that side with Clanderman. He's trying to figure out not the names of the players, but what to do with them. They've got to find an alpha receiver. Brown can make some catches. He could. He kind of was under the radar last year, so I would say that is the one. Running back is going to be by committee. I've talked to Keenan Hall, the running backs coach, hell of a recruiter too, about that. But getting Dawson Pendergrass back, they really would have liked to have had him with Bryson Washington for another year last year, but that didn't work out either way. So I'm going to say actually, and I think most people would disagree with me, but who is going to be your alpha at wide receiver?
It's a good one.
Really is. And Smokey, thanks so much for joining us. Good to see you. Good to meet you as well. Talking about Baylor on our countdown to kickoff. And we spent a lot of our last segment talking about DJ Lagway. And what are you hearing? What are you seeing? What's real to you? What's this August hype to you? Give us your impressions of the quarterback.
Well, it's been interesting. I had a chance to sit down with him back in February before they started their spring football. Really liked the young man and knew that anyway. And he told me back then, and if I've said this before, but he said it was as healthy as he had been since his freshman year at Florida. And that was not to say last year we didn't produce or Florida didn't produce because I was beat up or whatever. They just weren't very good, although they had to win against Texas. Him just being around, the Lagway story with him being around, and the positivity. I saw a quote from Jake Spavital, because I don't get to go to many practices with our podcast, where he said he is our hope. He gives us hope. So if DJ can be anything of what everyone saw of him when he was playing high school football, then that gives them hope. And I don't know. I've seen a few throws that have wobbled. But, I remember there's, you know, I don't. God, there's going to be most people on this podcast listening to you guys they're not going to. Billy Kilmer, that's like 50 years ago. Ari, neither one of you guys were even like a dream inside of your parents' heads. But 50 years ago, Billy Kilmer won. He was a backup to Sonny Jurgensen, and at times he took the team over. His ball looked like it was like God knows what he threw it with, but he won. I've seen a few passes from DJ Wobble, and that was one of the current concerns because of his shoulder. Everything seems to be fine there. There is no doubt like an aura, not from him, an aura around him like he is the guy. There's no doubt. Just Sawyer Robertson was the guy too. But I do think that he gives them, the coaching staff, the fan base, and the team, like, I'm not saying he's the savior because that's not the case. We don't know that. We may not know that. We may never see that. But I do think that just him around. When I've seen videos, and again, I haven't been able to go to practices because of the podcast. When I have seen videos, he's accurate. That's one. Well, Sawyer Robertson was accurate. He had a gun too. He could also take off. But remember, Sawyer stopped running last year. Never really understood why, and he never really gave us a reason for that. DJ can bide some time, and with his size, he's not going to probably break anything long, but he can get you that first down on 3rd and 6 if he gets pressure. He's not like a cat quick guy. He's just a pretty darn good athlete. So I hope that answered your question. They have so many new receivers. I mentioned Brown. I mentioned Miller. I've mentioned quite a few guys that are a part of that receiving core. There's one name, Jaden Porter. He's a local kid. Went to Lorena High School just south of Waco. Man, he's got to produce. He has to produce. Period. Plain and simple. Incoming freshman named London Smith, an incredible athlete from University High. They need those young players, a couple of those young players to come in, and a couple of the portal additions as well. I mentioned Brown. I know I'm going back to the wide receiver. He's comfortable with who he has at wide receiver, but is he comfortable when Auburn all of a sudden is bringing 6 or 7 and it's a critical 3rd down up in Atlanta, Georgia?
All right, Smokey, is this a legitimate sleeper team in the Big 12? Are you buying some of the hype around them?
Oh, no. When you say hype, Ari and Will, we have seen almost annually in the last 4 to 5 years. You know, last year Texas was in the Big 12. They were obviously really good, but even then, there were a couple of games that almost got away from them. But 21 Baylor was a sleeper. 22 TCU was a sleeper. Then you can go back a couple of other. There have been, like Oklahoma, you could just throw in 15 or whatever titles they had. Texas was always ranked high, but for a decade, they were just over-modulated because of the damn name on their jersey or the helmet. And they had one team that I think played OU for a Big 12 title that had beaten OU earlier in the year, but they weren't a sleeper. They just didn't match the hype, which is one of the reasons why Sark is there. I don't know. I don't think they're a sleeper. I have to see that. I've seen them do that. But no, I don't consider them like a team that could jump up and go like 9-3, and then mid to late November they're playing games to get into the Big 12 championship game. I just think that Tech and BYU and 2 or 3 others are just so good and have so much coming back, even with some of their own, like, for example, blemishes as far as concerns and questions. But I don't see Baylor, I don't see them as a sleeper. Well, here's why. Clanderman was coaching at K-State. Their defense was in the top 15 in forcing turnovers and turnover margin. Baylor was in dead last, top -5 in turnover margin in 2025. They couldn't even accidentally have somebody fumble or throw a bad pass. So can he make that much of a difference? If that was if that flips the script, yeah, then all of a sudden they are. But I gotta see it. I'm not gonna put them in that sleeper category, not until I see it. They go to Atlanta and beat Auburn again. If they do, it's Auburn's still in a. I gotta see that. I gotta see it when they go on the road. But they have a chance, guys, early on. I don't know what's going to happen in Atlanta. I love Alex Golish and what he's doing, but they have a chance to get off to a maybe 4-0 start. If they were to win the game in Atlanta, I don't expect them to. And then after that, then the meat of the schedule, Arizona State on the road, and then TCU, who they just never beat. They just don't know how to beat TCU.
Really good stuff there. It is interesting. You bring up Sark and you look at some of these coaches in college football. I want to focus on the head ball coach in Waco. How much pressure is actually on Dave Aranda here this year?
Well, I think it's been on him so long that I don't even know if it's pressure. He knows. He is not. He knows. He has to win. I asked Doug McNamee, the AD who came in back in December, had him on a couple of different times, but I asked him the last time he was in our studio like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so how will you know? Like is there a record? Like fans want to go, well, he's got to win 7 or 8 games, and then I say he just has to get to a bowl game, and they don't like that minimum requirement, but I think that means you also have to win a couple of games against good people.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you're going to beat Tech. I don't know if you're going to beat TCU. I don't know about winning in Tempe because we don't know what Dillingham has, as they kind of went through a little bit of transition last year with the Levitt injury and more. But I think you have to go. You have to be a bowl team, 6, 7. How many wins? But you have to have a couple of wins where like, okay, and not just wins if you're even favored to win 6 games because of some of the changes in the conference. Dave Aranda's been on the hot seat since the 22 team blew up and just cratered at the end of the year before losing that bowl game in Fort Worth to Air Force. He's been on the hot seat. They did have the 8-4 2 years later, but there's more of the 3-9s, etc., in between the 12-2, up and down and up and down and up and down. So hot seat last year, if Mack Rhodes isn't in the situation he's in, if Mack Rhodes is still the AD, I think I've said this before on record, Dave Aranda would not be back for this year. So maybe he just has a cat with 9 lives, and maybe this year they are improved and they are enough to get to a bowl game. But I think his seat has been so hot you don't even feel it anymore.
And you think bowl game is really the minimum?
Like, you mean they should win 8 or 9 instead of, like, just get into a bowl game?
I'm not saying what they should do. I'm simply saying, like, you think if he gets to 6 and gets to a bowl game, he'll be back.
I think if he gets to 6 or 7, I know, again, there's a lot of things people disagree with me, but I don't have any kind of, like, rose-colored glasses for them. Like when you said, are they going to be a sleeper? I mean, if they were to, like I said, in mid-November, they're in that race. I mean, that's incredible. I think they have to win a couple of games that are at least, that's nice, and get to 6 or 7 wins. That probably isn't enough for the fan base, and I'm sure that may not be enough for Doug McNamee, because here's what also is on top, Will and Ari, about what Dave Aranda and Baylor football and athletics, what they face. It's not just they're on the edge of becoming irrelevant. They're on the edge of, what about them? They're on the edge of fan base, which is trying to do everything they can to try to believe, and maybe not even believe, but just like DJ Lagway's the hope. I think that Dave is a wonderful man, but that doesn't mean you get to keep coaching when your team's not winning. I think everybody would love to see him continue to win, but I bet there's some in the fan base that are like, I don't care, we need a change. Because if you're like Dave Aranda, you're not fiery enough. If you're crazy and fiery, then you need to calm down like a Bo Pelini. But and God, I miss his fiery as a Nebraska fan.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, but okay, That's why I asked Doug, what is it going to look like? And he goes, I'll know. I go, okay, but can you define I know? I'll know. I think that's a combination of not only being competitive and winning some more often than you lose, but how the fans and the stadium and the attendance and the atmosphere reacts to who this team is in their identity. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Because, man, they're struggling. And let's be honest, it sets up everything else. Scott Drew, even though they've had a couple of years where it hasn't been that good, I mean, for their standard, there's a belief and there's a locked in, and they're all in with him, not just because they won the national title, but because of what they've done for 20 years. But in with this football program, they're just like there are times when some will discuss the Big 12 and it's not even as Baylor a sleeper. They're not even brought up in the conversation. That doesn't mean the experts, the analysts, the columnists, the talk show hosts are right by doing that, but that's kind of where they are right now.
But you're an expert, you're an analyst, so tell us, for you, outside of Baylor, you've mentioned a lot of the teams in the league, who's a sleeper in this conference in your eyes, outside of Baylor?
It's a great question because these aren't sleepers. Texas Tech, obvious. Duh. They're not a sleeper. BYU's not a sleeper. Houston is not a sleeper. Now, there might be some that go, well, wait a minute. They won 10 games. Willie Fritz is a builder. He builds with mortar, the hardcore brick and mortar. He doesn't do anything fluky and just have a year and then next year they fall back. I don't think that's a sleeper, but it's interesting that they're already in the middle of playing where they are. I'd like to know if they're TCU. I don't know if they're a sleeper because of what they just did. What was it? I know it's been a while now, 3 years or so. I have this feeling listening to Sonny Dykes at Big 12 Media Days, and I saw a comment he made even over the weekend. He's got a little edge to him.
Yeah.
He can be funny. I don't know about jovial, but he can be funny, and then he can sit there and like maybe even cut you and you don't even know it with something he is saying. I think he knows he's got a pretty good team. Now, they've got the Harvard quarterback in Hayden Craig, but I think he likes what he sees. I'll tell you, like last year, you know who would have been a sleeper? Arizona.
Yeah.
Like Arizona, Fafita, though, they got the quarterback, and he just makes things go. 2 years ago, Arizona State would have been the sleeper, right? Because of, Dillingham had high expectations, but heck, they're a fourth down conversion, batted down, sack, whatever, from beating Texas in the quarterfinals. That would be the kind of sleeper. And to me, I see a lot of notes about Utah with Scally, and there's the transition. They still lost big-time people. Not only players, but also coaches. I think they're going to be good. I don't know how good. I love their quarterback in Dampier. To me, that's a sleeper with I think TCU won 9 games last year. So it's hard for me to say that, but I don't think a lot of people are bringing them into the conversation as somebody that can win the Big 12 title.
David Smoke, 365 Sports. Go check out 365 Sports on YouTube. Smokey, you're the best, buddy. Appreciate you as always.
You guys, thank you so much. Hope you have a great day and a great week. We'll see you soon.
You too, bud. Thank you. There he goes, David Smoke, helping us break down his thoughts on Baylor in our countdown to kickoff preview, talking Baylor. West Virginia will be tomorrow. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Do we have a new development on the expanded playoff? We'll get into that. Plus, Big 12 soccer is on the way, and Big 12 in NASCAR. It's Big 12 today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Spins one, fourth down, got it! Senior to senior. Robertson spins one, fourth down, got it! Rush up the middle, Robertson spins one, fourth down, got it! From the mesh point, he pulls, he shoots, pass for a touchdown, Josh Cameron. Bowl eligibility on the line, and they go to Josh Cameron, as you said, who starts and to cap it. Class, he was in the ESPN 300. Robertson, and so that is caught by Cameron. Flag down, you hear Cameron barking, and one. And Josh Cameron on the outside, one-on-one. I mean, you've got guys straight all the way on. You mentioned it. Does he have full possession of that football? Now, he has possession immediately, but watch the ball move here. He's already got maybe that 70%. He's going to get the catch. I mean, Josh Cameron on the outside, one-on-one. I mean, you've got guys straight all the way on. You mentioned it. Play fake. One-on-one coverage. Jump ball. Flag is out. It's hauled in. Josh Cameron.
This is what we talked about earlier in impact players. He's our guy that they throw the fade to. You see it right here?
home for interviews.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Will Connerly doing a great job today filling in, although I would have said that anyways, even if you weren't doing a great job.
I was going to say, where's your barometer of great job and not great job? You're saying it no matter what.
It's pretty low. I have a pretty low bar, Will.
Show up.
Show up. That's half the battle. We've got the college football playoff expansion talks continuing. Today is a big day for that. Today there is a virtual meeting set with the college football playoff committee, the management committee, excuse me. TV consultants, this according to Pete Nakos from On3, are expected to present data on the value of expanded playoff models. The hope from leaders is to get clarity on which networks will be willing to bid on extra CFP inventory and how much those networks might be willing to pay. I'm reading directly from Nakos' piece. So, there's the talk of a 16-team expansion. The Big Ten wants 24, which would knock out big conference championship games. We've already heard from Brett Yormark that that's pretty much a non-starter right now until they prove the modeling out that losing a Big 12 championship game would be influential. Now, I will say the Big 12 does publicly support a 24-team model, but we have heard Yormark say basically they need to make sure that they're getting revenue back that they're losing from not holding a Big 12 championship. But it remains to be seen whether a 20-team model, which is the one they're going to be discussing today, one in the middle of 16 to 24, would or would not include championship games. To me, that's where the rubber meets the road here. You want a 20-team playoff? The best way to get the SEC on board with that is to say it's 20 teams, it's expanded, and we're not getting rid of conference championship games.
That's the sticking point. I mean, the conference championship games are so important to each conference, but if you ask any Big 12 coach, I mean, the more teams, they will want more at the table. I mean, everybody favored a 24-team playoff, coaches in the Big 12, and a bigger field would reward the Big 12 more than other leagues. It feels like because the depth of the league, more seats could be at the table. Now, I think there's other conversations, and probably for another time, is it really going to change who's going to win the national championship from when we went to 4? If you go back to when we have 4 to 12, 16, 20, 24, all these different proposals trying to make everybody happy, every conference happy, the finances of it. At the end of the day, I don't think you're going to see that Cinderella run. But if you are the Big 12, 24 definitely would benefit you because...
So you're saying expansion in and of itself will not change who will win the national championship?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think it did last year? You think in a 14 playoff, Indiana is still in it?
Yeah. Last year.
Indiana, yeah, because they won. Yeah, they were 16-0. Miami probably wasn't in that.
That's true.
14 field.
Yes. And
now, granted, that doesn't change the national champion. It changed the national championship.
And it does feel like if we're just thinking, man, we were at 4 not too long ago. And now we're talking 24, adding 20 more teams to that.
And
it just does it feel like too much at some point? And
yes. I mean, when 24 first came up last offseason, it was like, whoa, pump the brakes here. You're going from 2 forever to 4 to 12 to 24. It's outrageous. Now, I do agree to a degree that for the most part, one of the top 4 teams heading into the tournament is going to win the national championship. I don't know that adding more teams will have an impact on upsets. We haven't seen that yet. There's not really been a rash of dramatic upsets. But, is that true? Now I'm trying to think, because there were a ton of upsets in terms of the first round games. Or teams coming off the bye, weren't there?
Coming off the bye.
That's what it was.
Home teams, I mean, if you had the bye, you struggled in previous years.
It's just hard. There's such little data on trends.
That's exactly right.
To where we can know in the NCAA tournament there's going to be upsets, but ultimately to get to a Final Four, there's not that many upsets. It does happen, but for the most part, there aren't. Once we have more, data on this, we'll have a better idea of how much upsets could play a role. But does that even matter, ultimately? Because it's about access, right? Because once you get to the dance, you can win it. You can theoretically win it.
And you shouldn't just cut it off because, I don't agree. I just brought up that point because at some point, like you said, historical data, you can't really go off it because if it changes every year, there's going to be nothing that's consistent. But I do know one thing that has been true. whether it was 2, 4, 12, you're always going to have an argument. Last year it was, can BYU get in? We're going to argue 11, 12, 13. If we go to 24, that doesn't eliminate that. We're going to say, oh, no, they were the 25th best team in the country. They should have got in over the 24th team. There's still going to be those arguments no matter what you do. And so I just don't think for the sport, if we're in November arguing, man, they were the 24th best team and the 25th best team, and you're arguing should they get in? And what would the bracket look like? Like, logistically, are you going to play then a top 5 team? Or do they get the double buys? I understand the expansion, and I understand the Big 12 coaches wanting the expansion because all the conferences want representation. And, of course, you look at the SEC and the Big 10, there's been a lot of hold-up on that because they're like, no, we want the guaranteed bids. We're driving the money. We win the championships. So there's a lot going on with it, and it's good that we have Big 12 today because tomorrow it could be a completely new expanded format proposal. Every single day there's a new proposal to try to fix college football.
Yeah. Yeah, no, true. And look, I think ultimately 20 could be the good number because I do think expansion is necessary. You're right. Ultimately, no matter how much we expand, there will always be, well, they deserve to be in. They have the resume to get in. Like, unless you're letting everybody in, there's always going to be, teams that have an argument for it, even if you expand it out. But I do think expansion is important, especially for the Big 12.
Yes.
Because the Big 12 is on the outside looking in from a perception battle, and maybe that changes with the 20-team playoff. But I'm just of the camp that says I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want a conference championship game, and I want an expanded playoff. And if a 20-team format, a format with 20 teams in, can get me there, then I'm good on that.
And the automatic qualifiers would be a big component of that for the Big 12. Like, how many automatic bids would they get in an expanded format? Because they wouldn't be equal. Obviously, the SEC would have more guaranteed bids, and those are some of the talks right now. But I think it would, generally speaking, be a great thing for the Big 12 if you expanded to a format where they got 2 AQs and had a chance to move things forward. But it's fun. College football is fun to watch. And if we get to watch more college football, I don't think anyone would complain. But there is a point where you just wonder, what are we really trying to do here at the end of the day? And I do think you have to follow the money in all of this. You brought that to my attention last year. You said, I mean, look at the television networks. I mean, that's the biggest component of this whole thing that doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, and ESPN doesn't want this to be open for bid. Fox obviously does.
They want the cake and eat it.
Yeah. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. This week, the fall season officially starts. Soccer gets underway later this week. TCU, the defending Big 12 champion and Final Four participant from last year, kicks things off, pun intended, Thursday against Wisconsin. Sydney Staples, who is a former college soccer player, will join us in tomorrow's show to help us break down Big 12 soccer, which the season starts this week. So the fall season is upon us. And in case you were wondering, over the weekend, the Big 12 was featured in NASCAR on Riley Herbst's car. He's got Monster Energy. That's been his sponsor for his NASCAR stock car since, before he was in the Cup Series racing. And so he raced in Iowa with Big 12 emblem along with the Monster Energy car. So for those that poo-pooed the Monster deal, this is just another one of the aspects in which it really impacts the Big 12, the branding for the Big 12 on the car. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this was during an Iowa race. I expect that races that overlap in Big 12 country, I'm talking about Phoenix, I'm talking about Kansas, I'm talking about raceways, again, that NASCAR will be featured in that are within the Big 12 scope will be other parts in which the Big 12 will be featured. So I don't know that this is going to be consistent with Riley Herbst's car, but I do think for races that occur within the Big 12 footprint, we'll see that. And if you're watching us on Big 12 Studios right now, you can see the actual graphic shot by the Big 12, which is just really, really cool. It's an awesome Big 12 emblem partnered with Monster, and this is just one of the components that we don't yet know are part of the bigger picture. Will we see the Big 12 featured with its logo as part of Monster's branding with UFC? How far will we see this go? Because we don't yet have quite all of the details on what the Monster deal means to the Big 12, but already seeing ways in which it pays off. People thought it's $1 million per school or less than that to get a jersey patch and field placement. No, there's a lot more to it, and what we're starting to see is the ways in which there's a lot more to it.
The other side of the coin is the commercials, right? Like the Big 12 now has those commercial values on their assets. It's not just going one way like a lot of people thought initially when the deal came out. And I think, and I'm sure you guys, I wasn't here when it happened, but you guys had a lot of those takes about it right when the deal was launched. And this is one thing that's developed after the fact. And so you got to give a lot of credit to finding the revenue opportunity in dollars and cents, but the brand visibility as well is something, like you said, that we're going to continue to see play out. And you're getting your league on more eyeballs on your league. And more eyeballs on your league means more money at the end of the day.
Yeah, no question about it. The deal has been good, will always be good, and people that want to poo-poo it are just looking for reasons to be negative. All right, thanks to Will Connolly doing fantastic work as both producer and fill-in co-host. Thanks to Anthony Smith, our great producer over at Big 12 Studios, who, despite all of us taking lots of time off, seems to never take time off. Anthony is the Iron Man of all Iron Men. So appreciate Anthony for always being a constant amongst the show. Thanks to all of you watching, streaming, listening to us each and every day. We're back tomorrow talking West Virginia in our countdown to kickoff. Plus, we're going to have Gene Taylor, the Kansas State Athletic Director, on the show. This has been Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. We're back tomorrow, but for now we're out. Peace.